Just a few film nerds breaking out of a rut, drooling over cinema that's hard and uncut. Stick us in your ear, thrill to this month's picks, and come and listen in, we're Measuring Flicks.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Measuring Flicks. My name is Karl Hartley.
I'm Max Peterson.
And this week we are watching Eraserhead.
Look at my knees! Look at my knees!
Thanks, Bill.
Oh my God. Karl.
Max, if that is your real name.
You have been at my house for 2 hours now, and we have been literally almost exploding not talking about this movie because we had to record the shootout first.
Yeah. Fuck me.
Holy fucking
Fuck
shit.
me, baby Jesus.
Okay, we're talking today about 1977's Eraserhead, directed by David Lynch. What do you got for me?
Okay, this is the only feature-length David Lynch movie that I hadn't seen until to yesterday or 2 days ago.
You're talking about like Dune?
Yeah, it's
Blue
like I've
Velvet.
watched like Lost Highway, Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, like Twin Peaks, Elephant Man, Dune, Inland Empire. I even watched Inland Empire, that 5.5-hour experiment that he did with Laura Dern and Wild at Heart. Like I've seen all of his movies, and they always leave you feeling a little bit David Lynched, right? Like I've been David Lynch.
Nothing like this.
This fucking movie, dude. This is like 48 hours, almost 72 hours since watching it. I'm still like, I can't. I'm like, the world is not real. Nothing is true. I am fully convinced that David Lynch is not from this particular version of our Earth. He is
different reality.
I think that he phased in through another parallel dimension somewhere, unbeknownst to him or anyone else. But he is just a little bit off of. This shows in this movie, shows in all of his movies, but in this movie
one
in particular. And then, of course, you did the same, watching as many documentaries and behind-the-scenes interviews with him.
Yeah.
The way he interviews is really strange.
The documentary that I watched
is Eraserhead Stories, maybe? Was that the one that was on the...
It's called about, I think it's called I See Myself.
Okay.
And it's just a documentary about Eraserhead. It's essentially David Lynch sitting in a room. It's shot in black and white, and he's talking to there's a microphone in the foreground.
That's the one I saw.
You watched that whole thing as well?
Sure did.
And he talks to a girl on the speakerphone at one point?
Yep.
I think it's interesting that there's no questions. It's just him talking, and you keep waiting for him to talk about Eraserhead, and he never does.
He never does, but he is talking about Eraserhead, like living in the studio and like going to the film school and shooting he says Eraserhead a couple of times. He's
the movie do you want to get into the backstory of how this movie came to be, because it's so
it's him like
weird.
Going to film school.
It was like a film
as a fellow.
He went to
it was like the inaugural or the second year
it's
of
the Advanced Film Studies program. It's not necessarily a school. It was like basically like a really loosey goosey like not class, but like it was kind of like a class, but basically they only accepted 11 fellows every year. It was like if you were doing interesting things,
they invite you to do this.
Yes, it's like basically what it was like, why don't you come here? And it was this mansion in California where they would screen movies all day long. If you wanted to watch anything that had ever been filmed, you could go watch it. And then you'd basically talk to the heads of this program and be like, here's my script, I want to shoot this movie. And they'd be like, okay, well, let's procure you some funds. And they had like like not real sound stages, but like places you could use as sound stages. They had camera equipment, they had lighting, they had props, and they had deals set up with all these major Hollywood studios so that they could like borrow shit from Warner Brothers, borrow shit from Paramount. So it's like this weird experimental, like perfect place for really out there filmmakers to go and make movies. And my favorite part of the story, I'm sure, well, you know it too because you watched the documentary, but he gets there based on this script that he'd written called Garden Back, 41-page screenplay. So a major Hollywood producer he starts working on it kind of at the school, and that's his like school project. And then this Hollywood producer, like halfway through his first year, goes, I really like this. I want to make this a movie. We're doing it's this guy. He's doing a bunch of low budget horror films, and he's like, I want to give you $50,000 to make this movie. And David Lynch is like, okay, that sounds great. So then they,
oh, that sounds great.
It's not a terrible David Lynch, but the guy's like, there's only one catch. It's 41 pages. I need this to be like 115 pages. And David Lynch is basically like, what the fuck are you talking about? My script is 41.
It's 41 pages.
So he worked the rest of his time there for his first year. He works on expanding the script, and he hated it. He said all the bits that I liked were still there, but now there was a bunch of like
other
crap
kerfuffle and bullshit.
Yeah, there was just garbage in between the good bits to fluff this, pad the script out. And he's like, fuck this. So at the end of his first year, the first day of his second semester there, his second year there, and it's only a 2-year program, he's like, I'm out. I quit. Fuck you guys. And he leaves.
Went to a coffee shop, got coffee, then went back home.
Gets home.
There's been messages for you.
They're like, they've been calling.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? And he's like, I left. I quit the fucking school. And one of the guys who works with him eventually works with him on Eraserhead, Alan something. I should have grabbed that DVD case. It has the book that I have has the whole cast and crew listed in the front page, but it's back there, so I got to go grab it. But he basically, this other guy leaves with him, and the school calls him back, and he goes in for a meeting, and they're like, look, why did you leave? And he's like, you guys fucking wrecked the thing I wanted to do. You're not giving me any creative freedom. And they're like, look, you're our favorite thing right now. You're our favorite person in this program. So if you're unhappy, we're
doing something wrong.
What do you want to do? He's like, well, I don't want to do Garden Back. You guys trashed it. It's garbage. And they're like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to do Eraserhead. And they're like, do it.
Yep.
Eraserhead is a 21-page script.
Oh, and he said it'll be 21 minutes. He's like, I feel like it's going to be a touch longer.
He's like, it's going to be longer. And they're like, fine, 42. It ends up being like an hour.
Hour and 35 minutes.
Yeah, it's like an hour 35 minutes long. And you can find not the whole. I cannot find the script. I looked for it forever because I wanted to see what.
But
it
you
was.
can write the script, the dialogue. You can write down in a page and a half.
There's pictures. There's in the documentaries. There's pictures of the script and how it works, and it's basically just like a bulleted list of like vignettes that are coming out of David Lynch's head.
That's so crazy.
It's like, and like
this watch is like a dream journal.
His mother, when his mother first watched the movie, she famously said when the credits rolled, he turned to one of the people, the assistants who'd worked on the film, and said, I wouldn't want to have a dream like that.
I would not want to have a dream like that.
He said it was his best review. But for me, I wrote down again and again while I was watching this that this is like watching a nightmare.
It is exactly like watching a nightmare. We literally watched. This is why I love film. This is why I wanted to do this podcast in particular. Are movies like this? This is quite literally watching David Lynch's nightmares.
Yeah.
And the way he's able to, I feel like if you were to actually like hook up some sort of machine and record his actual nightmare,
this is what
is what you would see. He found a way from the sound to the feeling this movie gives you,
oh my God,
to every small detail. He has created his best of nightmare fodder in one movie, and it is. It's in the horror genre. I wouldn't even call this a horror movie, though.
I don't know what to call this film.
It's Eraserhead.
We should do this before we go any further. Carl, you like this movie?
I fucking love this movie.
Thank you so much. Okay, what you just said, I didn't want to, because you were in a flow. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Enough.
You said this movie's the reason that you wanted to do, like, this type of film is why you want to do this podcast. That is this film and basically all the movies I picked for my month. You can see it's 2 David Lynch's and 2 Jim Jarmusch movies. Yeah. And I've been kicking for, like, we've been talking about season 2, and I'm talking about, like, as much art house and experimental cinema as we can cram in there. And this is fucking why. This movie, when you watch it, it opens your head up, and you start. You'd never seen this before. I had never seen this before.
I thought that I had, but it was the Elephant Man that I had seen before, not Eraserhead,
which is an awesome David Lynch movie.
Yeah.
But this movie, like, rewired. I shot a feature. I've been writing scripts forever. Mm-hmm. I really like film. This movie completely.
This makes me want to, like, okay, drop what you're doing. Go make a fucking movie.
Out the window, everything I thought I'd known, all these preconceptions I'd had, like. this movie became like I swear to God, this movie is now like religion to me. This movie is we've been talking forever about like redoing our top 10s or whatever.
Yeah.
This movie's in my top 5.
Yeah.
100,000 fucking %. This movie is insane. This movie gets in your soul. It literally
does.
once you watch it, once you sit down and watch it,
You're
it
living
sits
in
you.
that room with Henry.
Which is funny because did you know David Lynch lived in that room
He did
for 3 years?
Yeah, and it was in like the stables of that place that they put the flats up to make this.
And
And he lived there. And they let him live there.
Okay, for those
He
of you
lived in Henry Spencer's room
for those of you who don't know, this
for 4.5 years.
This movie took 5 years
5
to
years.
make. This movie took 5 years to make, and he lived in the room for 3 of them. But what blows my mind most about it, the program
Jesus.
ended,
Yeah.
and people were looking at his dailies, and they're like, yeah, I guess you can just stay here and
I guess you can stay.
just keep doing
Like
this.
the head of security, whatever, had to do like
A yearly
walkthroughs-
inspection to
walkthroughs,
make-
like, all right, everything looks good, David. We'll see you next
Well,
year.
he'd give him a heads up so he could move his shit out of the room for the
Right, yeah.
inspection. Because you're not allowed to live in this room. They would bolt plywood to the doors and then padlock him in at night. So
people were like, oh, it's secure.
yeah, that room's secure. There's no one in there. But David Lynch was
He
living.
literally
in that room.
lived in that space for over 3 years.
Not just that space, but think about that. This headspace of this film. He lived there for 5. That's probably why he is the way he is. He lived this film for 5 years.
The thing that fucked me up the most about his interviews during that time, especially the phone interview when he had the woman on the phone, He's like, "Oh yeah, remember you worked at the restaurant for extra money?" He's like, "I did that? Oh, I don't remember.
I don't remember that at all. I don't.
Like he has, and there's other interviews
other
with
stuff
him,
where he doesn't-
like, he doesn't recall shit.
Like
He's
utterly
like, oh,
blank.
I don't remember doing that.
Well, the part that I love about those interviews that they do, we are eventually going to talk about this film.
We
This
will.
is going to be a long
Yeah.
mamma jamma. Just be ready, and I'm fine with it because this movie. Oh my god! But he lived that room that he was living in, Henry's room, no windows. Because it made lighting easier to have no windows in that room. It was essentially
Control the
a soundstage.
light, yeah.
So what he would do is they would lock him in there during the day, and he would sleep all day, and they'd start filming at night. Because that's when everyone got off their jobs.
Yeah.
They'd like start like they'd do like building the sets and setting up the lighting, and he says it was like painfully slow to set everything up. But and I want to talk about this more, but when you see the lighting, what they managed to do with light in this movie, you understand why it takes so fucking long.
Right.
This is you don't
The
like
setups are
you're not like, all right, listen, we got to get this painting done, Rembrandt, go faster. This is truly like this. I've never seen anything like this since. I've seen a lot of movies. I've never seen anything even close.
I have to go.
this.
I saw this on a DVD
Yeah.
version, and it looked like a 1977 film transferred to DVD. It was hi-fi, but it was still grainy. You couldn't really see. It was like a crap version that was just put on a DVD.
Right, yeah.
And you have the Criterion Blu-ray, and I
4K
watched just a
restoration.
little bit of that, and I'm like, holy shit, I saw a different movie. Like, I watched Eraserhead and I got, but like I
Yeah.
need to watch that in 4K.
Yeah, well, as soon as I started, I think I fast forwarded to the bit where we pan through that crevasse
Yeah.
in the planet, and you see the texture of the rock, and I think that was when you were like, "Holy shit, I saw a different film."
I saw a different film.
And the first thing out of my mouth was like, "Well, come over and we'll watch a movie sometime.
Yeah,
let's watch
let's watch Eraserhead.
Watch my 4K Eraserhead,
Oh
man."
my God.
I'm dead serious, man. Like this movie. Oh, God.
What's so funny, like going to, because I'd watched David Lynch's complete body of work except for this. So when the first shot happens in the movie, the note that I wrote was, "Yep, this is David Lynch, all right." Like, oh, yep, here's David Lynch
Here we
doing
go.
his weird shit. And then, like, as soon as I wrote, like, that was it.
That's
for
the
that.
last-
That's the last. And it's.
Yeah,
oh, my
that first shot where it starts with like just boom, the title Eraserhead, and then it's Henry on his side, and then he superimposes footage. So the moon, Henry's under the planet,
black planet.
It's the black planet, and then the black planet passes through Henry's head, and he's above it, and then it passes back through.
Yeah.
And then we pan in on the black. So like that first bit where you're like, because I haven't seen all of his stuff, but I've seen Twin Peaks, I've seen Dune, I've seen Elephant Man. You're like, oh yeah, okay.
He echoes a lot of his stuff in Eraserhead and Inland Empire too, which I found to be very interesting.
what?
Inland Empire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Inland Empire.
Hadn't seen that either. But one thing that is fun to spot in this, especially for Twin Peaks fans, since there's that resurgence of Twin Peaks happening now, the lobby in his hotel is the same exact floor, only he expands the scale for Twin Peaks. He talks about it in a bunch of different interviews. There's like 50 interviews on the Criterion discs.
Amazing.
But he's basically like, oh yeah, I revisited a lot of that for Twin Peaks, you know. I fucking love how he talks.
I'm gonna smoke 18 cigarettes.
He smokes a lot in that documentary.
Yeah.
He's just chiefing them down.
Yep. And I think that just speaks to transcendental meditation and what it can do for your health.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of vegans who just chain smoke cigarettes
Exactly.
too. Shout out to my.
So the one thing about David Lynch, which is sort of his hallmark almost, his way of making, we already know that this is a living nightmare that we're watching, or from his brain. But he has this way of making the innocuous seem as malevolent as fuck.
Yes.
Like show me the pencil sharpener. Why am I looking at this pencil? Why is this? What is happening? Why are we?
Sequence just.
Holy fuck!
Well, at no point, like in retrospect, like after your first night of just not being able to sleep because you've seen True Genius and you can never go back now. I was sitting on the couch and I'm like, it's Henry's brain being used to cap pencils with erasers. He literally has become an eraser head in this weird like nightmare that he has. But then it doesn't even matter that it's a dream, because that's one of the big hallmarks of film, of storytelling is like dreams usually don't work because your audience feels cheated because there's no weight to them. But because his whole life is some sort of strange nightmare, this nightmare is just as real as the nightmare he's living in.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, it's just a dream. And then he wakes up and there's a fucking alien baby screaming on his desk.
Or his dresser.
Yeah, so anybody who's going to sit there and be like, hey, that's just some sort of weird dream. I'm like, this guy's
living in his own personal little hell.
Everything you see affects everything.
So I had a thought about where they are if it isn't a dream, because there's a small touch. I don't know if you know.
I don't think it is, but go ahead.
There is a framed photo hanging next to his bed of a mushroom cloud.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that's what it was in my crappy DVD version of it.
Watch, we're going to pop mine up. And it's going to be just like...
Oh, it's a tulip.
Exactly. It's a picture of a flower.
But if it is a mushroom cloud, I thought that maybe this was some sort of post-apocalyptic thing, because there's a mutant baby in it. Everyone's acting all strange. It's a black planet.
They don't even know if it's a baby. After you get married, you can pick it up from the hospital.
What?
Dude.
And then mom is trying to make out with Henry real quick?
Did you have sexual intercourse?
Did you have... What?
Dude, this...
Oh, my God. And
I'm Bill.
I'm Bill.
That smile.
Oh, my God. What was the line?
There's no point in trying to go through this in a linear way.
Grandma ain't stirring shit for one thing.
Holy shit.
And she always gets a smoke after helping with dinner.
Okay, this podcast is just going to be a series of us saying a scene from the movie.
Well, that would make sense because this
you
is
and me and you and me just going, fuck, holy shit, holy fuck. That's all this podcast
sort of how
is going
this
to be.
movie is, though, because it's just these weird fucking vignettes a way.
Here's my approach to this, because I think you were saying like it might be a nightmare, it might be like a post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
I have a different theory.
Go for it.
Based on the things that I read and saw.
When you put this movie in, you die for a minute and you're actually living in hell, and then you...
Correct. You don't actually watch a film. You just opens a portal to hell in your television screen, and you watch what you're destined to because of that thing that you did when you were 11.
Yeah.
But no, here's what I think, because David Lynch in an interview in this, there's a book called, I think it's called Lynch on Lynch. He talks about it's called Lynch on Lynch. It's written by Chris Rodley, 1997. Lynch talks about how he says this movie was born in Philadelphia. He lived in a town kind of like this one, like very industrial, like industrial
a steel
park
town or something like that. Yeah,
like steel mill, a lot of like working class people who are just getting home and getting their like, meat and salad type folks. And that's why like there's so much like I think there's other reasons for it too, but that's why all the characters are like, oh, I work at the.
I get the Billy Joel song "Allentown" in my head sometimes when I think of this, like "ching chong," like that sound of like hammers on metal. And
well, you don't even need to get that song in your head because the soundtrack is literally like a banging furnace.
A banging furnace.
Oh my god, the sound. I don't even know if you can buy the soundtrack on iTunes.
There's not a single piece of actual music in it.
The first track 1 is 18 minutes, track 2 is 27, then there's the Girl in the Radiator song and the closing credits.
Fuck me.
Dude, I'm gonna buy the fuck out of the soundtrack.
It's all, I wouldn't even call it white noise, it's like black noise. It's like,
that's a great word for it. But like, so here's what I think. Lynch describes this film, and he calls it the world of Eraserhead. To him, it almost feels more real than like, oh, it's a movie I made once. He's like, that place that I was, Eraserhead. He describes it as a mood rather than a story. He never refers to it as like the story of and the plot is. And
right.
Lynch's, I read a bunch of different places. I think I heard on an old Kevin Smith podcast too. It was Movie Makers or something like that. Lynch is he'll talk about all his movies except this one. He doesn't give his interpretation of this film because he wants to hear what
leave
people
it open.
think. Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get a distinct grasp. He says at the end of the documentary, for years, critics and fans have been coming up to me and telling me their interpretations of the movie. And I will say this, not one of them is my interpretation. Which
that blew my fucking mind when you said that.
Yeah, because you sit there watching the movie and you're like, I think I get it. And then you hear David Lynch say that and you're like, no one knows what the fuck this is about. Nobody. But it doesn't matter.
Nope.
Does not matter. This movie is wait, let me finish my theory because it's easy to get scatterbrained with a movie that's as scattered as this one. He describes it as a mood. So I think rather than thinking of it as like we're in a world of objective reality and these things are either objectively real or they are not objectively real.
Or they're a metaphor for a thing
or they're a metaphor for a thing or not. I think everything we see, however we take it, is correct because I think this movie is akin to
a Rorschach painting?
Jazz.
Oh.
I think it's like watching jazz or like looking at abstract art because two people will stand side by side.
That's a duck. That's a beaver. It's
and both of you are
right.
Correct. So I think what Lynch managed to do with this film is project. You're familiar with like not just archetypes, but like the Jungian concept of archetypes. Moon. When you hear moon or see moon, everybody gets a visceral reaction, but they're all slightly different.
Because
blood, river, mother.
It means different thing to different person.
But it universally
for one person, mother might bring a sense of joy and love. For another person, it might be despair and
it all has to do with your vantage point or perspective along the human continuum. So like. But the thing about the Jungian archetype or archetypes especially in literary analysis, they're things that light up everybody's button. Me, when you show me blood, I have a visceral reaction to it. So do people in France, so do people in Africa, so do Inuit. Anyone who sees blood, boom, it's an archetype. It's a human visceral reaction. I think Lynch managed to compose a film of hybrid archetypes. So
fuck me.
Go. Just get it out of your head.
So that's why with the mutant baby, it's a baby. You say baby, certain people think, but that's a very primal thing with us. And it wasn't so much about the way the mutant baby looked. I was more like, that is an amazing piece of how they made it. Some of the
best effects I've ever seen.
What fucked with me was the sound of it.
Yeah.
The sound of that baby sort of crying and cooing and like being upset, like that was fucked up to me. It was like not the way it looked, the way it sounded.
Because it sounded
wouldn't shut up.
Normal.
Yes. Just normal enough. Because the mutant baby is so far from
it's upsetting.
There's
a lot in this movie when you see it, you're like revolted but transfixed.
Yeah.
You are like, I can't.
But it's the sound of that baby because it doesn't really stop ever.
And it's so close to the way a normal baby sounds.
And then the way mother reacts to it. She leaves. She leaves the room.
And never comes back
never
at one
comes
point.
Back.
But there's the scene where they're both laying in bed and she like kind of sits up a little and goes, shut up, and then it doesn't, and she gets up out of bed and leans over it with her arms like cocked back at this strange angle, and it's like a bark or like a, it's not a scream. It's like
No.
a shout or a bark or she screams shut up at it basically, but the way she says it is inhuman. It's I can't describe it. A lot of this movie is going to be us trying to describe things, and it's going to sound really banal, but when you fucking see it,
Right.
you hear it, this movie, oh god damn, dude. It's like the whole experience of this film goes into your head and sits behind your chest and is there now forever. You cannot get this out of you once you've watched it.
It is stuck in me.
But the way that part of what upsets me about that scene is that child's mother.
It's its mother.
So you're
That's
seeing,
the thing that I like about Henry is when he comes home for the first time, and the first time you see Mutant Baby, he has a smile on his face. Be's a proud papa, and even the way that he lays down on the bed, he kind of puts his hands under his chin,
Yes.
and he's kind of like he's doing that thing with his feet, almost like he's very happy and he's happy to be home.
Now-
but the record player is kicking back and forth. It's been
Does
the
he
record.
move it?
No, it just sits there and skips. No one ever touches it. It still sits there and like. The record's been,
it's like on
it's
the
like
last.
it's on the last thing. It's the end of the record, so it's tick tick tick.
Yeah.
Tick. But nobody touches it, so you know that the mom has been in the room. That record's been over, and she's just like, "Fuck this baby."
Well, yeah, that's why she ultimately leaves. She's like, "You take care
But
of it
the
for a
fact
while."
that Henry is so
I don't know if this
like
is
happy, he looks at the baby and has that smile, like, that's my thing.
I don't know if this is a DVD versus like hoity-toity 4K restoration.
God, I missed so much. I bet.
His facial features change, and I have a note about it. He walks in the room, he opens the door, and he tries on a smile, and then it goes away.
Oh, shit.
His face blanks completely the fuck out. He like goes like he comes in and like
and then he goes and stares at the radiator.
it's like a little grin, and then it's gone, and then he walks over and lays
because
on
I
the bed.
couldn't tell what it was because of my the transfer on my DVD.
Yeah.
What is the stuff around the radiator on the floor? It looked like hair or something to me. I don't know what that was.
So much of what my notes are now. I mean, I'm glad that we saw it differently and still had the same visceral reaction. It shows how powerful it is. But,
Yeah.
It is like it's like a tangled. I don't know what
Like
exactly
a tangled
it is.
weave of like hair or some sort
it's
of
like
matty.
hair. Yes, yeah. He has a big. It's like
And it's not
like,
always there.
no, but it moves at one point. It's over on his dresser.
And then it's on his dresser, right?
It's like some hybrid of like hair.
like pubic hair almost in a way, or like the
it's
hair
wiry.
from the top of his head.
It's wiry, yeah. It's like it's sometimes it looks like straw. Sometimes it looks like someone. You know those really like those old plastic carpets when they would get a snag in them and it would
Yes.
pull like that big fluff
That
out.
yeah.
It looks sometimes to me like a combination of hair and that, but a lot of my notes are because there's very little dialogue in this movie.
But like I said, it's like a page and a half probably of actual spoken word.
Yeah, Bill has like the longest speech in the whole
And
film. It's about
yeah.
the chickens.
Oh, and
the
he has
man
the
made
best-
smaller than my fist.
Man-made. So the best. I feel like we're going out of. I
Well,
interrupted you.
No, that's okay.
But one of the best things that Bill, one of the only words interchanges between Henry and anybody. So when the ladies go into the kitchen, because I think somebody was having a seizure again or something because the chickens were spitting out.
God,
dark
we
bloody
got to
shit.
take it one thing at a time because
I
I
know.
want to talk about this too. I want to talk about this their like fits that they have.
Yeah.
So that's the hair around the radiator.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No.
Let's finish that.
We'll finish that,
'Cause this- I
and then
can get
let's
so, like,
let's go from
ADD
there.
on this fucking movie.
The problem with the movie is in most even great films, there's a great moment and then there's like stuff that gets you between. Mm-hmm. I think it speaks to the way that he wrote the script where he complains.
It's one thing.
Well, he complains in Garden Back. He's like, I've got my good bits, and they wanted to fill the middle stuff. They wanted to separate him with crap. This movie, they let him do what he wanted, and all he had was good bits. So every single fucking thing you see in this movie, you could unpack for an hour.
Yeah.
I'm talking like every 1 minute section of film you could analyze for an hour. This movie is we cannot do justice even remotely.
No.
But I would like to try. So the furnace. The hair around the furnace.
Oh, the radiator.
The radiator, not
Yeah,
the
it's
furnace.
very important.
Yes, it is a radiator. Lady in the Radiator.
Chipmunk Girl.
There's a reason.
Okay, I have a thought
Go.
on that. Because in the very beginning of the movie, like a big sperm comes out of his mouth.
Yes.
And then there's a baby. So one of the notes I had is like mouth sex with sperm that comes out of your mouth during non-vaginal sex equals mutant baby.
Interesting.
Strange, right? But then the girl in the radiator, I call her Chipmunk Girl because she's got those big puffy cheeks. And I'm like, well, that's because she's got his nuts in her mouth.
Oh, that's interesting.
And she's got
thought.
all those little sperms that are on the ground that she's crushing.
Yeah.
And also, Henry, at one point when his wife is sleeping in the bed with him, he's pulling the large sperm away from her and throwing them against the wall to stop her from getting pregnant again.
Interesting.
Is what my thought was. That was my read on that.
I like that
But then-
read. I have a different thought about the lady in the radiator. Keep going.
Also, she's a horrible tap dancer, but that's,
but I mean, the way he walks is strange
it's
too.
strange as shit. He's very not Charlie Chaplin-esque, but Buster Keaton in the way that he maneuvers and shuffles a lot.
Yeah.
But the radiator chick, I mean, there's so much weird going on with that. Actually, that was the point when Danielle
walked in.
Because I feel it bears because I wrote it down because of her reaction. The only thing that she saw was she came in just at the right time to see Radiator Girl for the very first time.
Not
doing
when
that
she
weird
sings
dance.
the "In Heaven Everything Is Fine."
No, it was that point. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was
That's
when
the
she was
second time
singing.
we
Yeah.
see her.
So Dee Dee came in during the Chipmunk Girl singing. While I was explaining Lynch's filmmaking. So she's like, "What are you watching?" I was trying to explain David Lynch, and then that scene started happening, and she says, "Nope, just nope."
And walks out.
And then as she's walking away, she's like, "This is some nightmare-inducing shit. I'm going to be seeing her face in my dreams." I said, "Well, don't look." And because she actually stood there, and actually she didn't walk away. She kept standing there. She said, "I can't stop. It's like a train wreck." And I said, "She performs on a stage in his radiator." It was like, "Oh, that's okay. She's performing on a stage in his radiator."
Wow.
And then she just walked away silently.
You and I had really similar experiences. Bird came home, or either came home or came downstairs. I lost all track of what was going on outside this movie when I started watching.
I know right behind that actually
Yeah.
is I want to design an Eraserhead pinball machine.
I love it. I just recently hooked my television up to a fairly boss sound system, which in this movie pays off because like in your normal TV speakers, if you give them that too low of a frequency, you get a tinny meh sound.
Yep.
These speakers are built to handle super low frequencies, so I was getting
all that deep bass,
super rumble. Oh my god, it's killer. So Bird comes down, and here's where Bird came down. Bird came down as he was cutting the baby out of its. That was the first scene that she actually sat down and started watching. And she's like, "Oh my god, what is this?" And I was like, "Oh, that's
the baby."
I was like, "That's his baby. He had that baby with her." And very shortly thereafter, he has a bit where, she came in before that because she saw the woman across the hall, and when they're having sex in the bed
bed that
milk,
became a hot tub of milk.
Yeah, the bed that became a hot tub of milk, and she's like, what? Oh my god! And then she was just hanging out on the couch. She saw that. Then she saw the In Heaven scene where the lady in the radiator sings her song, and she's like, "Who's this?" I'm like, "It's the lady in the radiator." And it's so weird because you did the same thing.
Yeah,
but
it's like
when
it's the lady in the radiator. She has a theater there, and she's singing to him.
Exactly. When you're watching the movie, it all makes sense to you.
Yeah.
It becomes so bizarre that everything you're just like, no, okay.
No,
so that's the lady from across the hall, and they're having sex in the bed, and she's like, "Why is the milk?" I'm like, "I don't know, but we'll figure it out later." And then she's like, "What's this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's the lady in the radiator. She's singing him his song." And Bird, I explained what I thought that metaphor was, which I'll get to in a second, because it's different than yours, but I think we might both have something there. And then after the In Heaven, Everything Is Fine song, he cuts in some of the most horrific movie makeup I've ever seen, but none of it, again, it's like a weird fake baby that you've never seen, not real, but everything looks so convincing.
Right. And I think they use real animal parts, like parts of chickens and parts of
He talks about in the documentary that he got a cat from a vet to see what the insides would look like, and I think he used that in his makeup. David Lynch is a very, very gifted special effects guy. He does a lot of the makeup for his movie. He does all of the special sets, and he's the one who articulated the baby. That fake baby, he articulated it, and I think it's interesting. When they did screenings, like the uncut screenings where you could see beyond the edges of what before they put the aspect ratio on it. He made the projectionist turn his back every time the baby came on because he didn't want anyone to know how he had articulated it, and you could see it on the bottom of the screen. That's him articulating that baby.
That is amazing,
right?
Holy shit.
Yeah, but both Bird and I, like, after this movie's done, if you watch this with somebody, like, you're either going to sit and have a really long conversation, or like me, you're going to finish it at 11 o'clock and go up to bed, and then you just lay in bed and Bird's like, I keep seeing that baby's eye. Or like,
that weird, the foggy cataract sort of eye that...
It's the scene...
Oh, you are sick. And then,
oh my God, that was the best jump scare I've seen in a movie in like 5 fucking years. When he takes the baby's temperature and the baby seems fine and he looks at it and then he walks 2 steps, turns back, and it's suddenly like
it's got
devastatingly sick. Like it's gonna fucking die any second now. And
it's got lesions on his face. It's got...
And there's... Okay, like, I just looked over and that can looked like a head and I got spooked just now.
I keep looking over at the...
Dude, it creates a weird, like, a sense that the world's not real.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's not even like a... You know, normally in a horror movie, there's like a musical sting where it's like, violins! There is a sound, but it's like a banging radiator sound. Where it's like
a ting ting,
and then they turn around and that like that's the fucking soundtrack to this movie is like pipes banging and steam and like weird like pseudo theremin stuff that's I think is probably just like violin with effects on it. But yeah, he turns around and the baby's like gonna die and his reaction is, oh, you really are sick. It's Jack Nance is the actor who plays Henry Spencer. Everyone in this movie is so good. Not in that Daniel Day-Lewis kind of way where it's like, I'm portraying a real person and you can see micro-acting in my face.
Right.
They're great in the way that everything they're doing is absurd and nothing makes sense and all their dialogue is fucking like dada. And everyone's doing a convincing job of making it seem like this is how things are. They sell it. They sell you this world, and if they were not all 100% on point, you wouldn't believe a single second of this movie.
Came out in 1977.
Lynch's first feature.
40 years old. I mean, this movie is as old as I am, and it's like this
doesn't
came
age
out
a day.
Came out the same year as Star Wars, right? And it's like how fucking like this could have come out today.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially when you watch. I'm being
4K,
snooty about it, but when you watch that 4K, because
that transfer is beautiful.
When you see grainy, you're like, you can kind of spot sometimes. You're like, oh, this was shot on film. This is older.
Right.
The job that they did upgrading that to a 4K restoration, this looks like it was literally like it was shot yesterday.
Yeah.
Like Auteur Director 2018 was like, I'm going to do an homage.
I'm going to do an homage to whatever.
To what?
To your fucking nightmares.
We've said before, like a million times talking about movies, we're like, oh, you can really tell, like, he was inspired by this, or like, oh, Tarantino, he mixes all these influences together. Name anything else that's even vaguely remotely that predates this, because after this, holy shit, you see people inspired by this all the
time,
all over the place. I can't remember who it was, but this movie screened continuously for 3 years. When it first came out.
Oh, the Midnight Circuit?
Yeah, they did the Midnight Circuit, and this movie played every weekend for 3 years.
And rightly so. This is like one of those the definition of cult classic, cult flick, right? Jesus. It's
so far outside the experience, the normal cinema experience, that it's... Like you said, it's 77. It came out the same year as Star Wars, and I'm like, I watched Star Wars. I got this nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like I hear that like John Williams score, and you get that, And then you look at Eraserhead, and you're like, why are you even trying?
Why are you
George
trying?
Lucas?
Yeah.
Get your fucking movie out.
Good job with your sci-fi bullshit.
This is we did our shootout
remake of Hidden Fortress.
We did. We did our shootout last week, right? And we talked about Raising Arizona as that flexible movie where it's great if you watch it nitpicky. It's great if you just have it playing. But it's no matter what, it's great and it's always fun, right? This movie, I feel like you can sit and stare at it, and this movie will demand that you stare at it. But you could also just get 10 people together and be like, "Have you guys ever seen fucking Eraserhead?" And you're like, "No, I never have." Put this movie on. Some people, when the baby like shows up and like starts getting
Like,
cut up,
all right, I'm out.
yeah, I gotta leave.
I'm out.
Some people, there's this movie is like, it messes with you, but I think this is another one of those movies where you show this to anyone and at the end of it they're like, I'm not sure if I liked it.
You know what's really kind of fucked up is you're not really seeing anything
disturbing.
really that disturbing.
There's one disturbing shot. There's one shot that I think is universally disturbing when he cuts the wrappings off and you realize that he's gutted the baby while he's cutting the wrapping off, and then you see the intestines and all the. But what's weird about that scene is you get like all the organs and you're like, oh my god, and the baby's like screaming and it's really like traumatizing. You're like, oh Jesus, he just gutted his baby. His baby's fucking dying, and it's like white, like clear liquids coming out of one of its organs.
Dark, and then
dark, and then this mountain of like foam sand.
Shit? Yeah,
I don't know what the fuck that is.
But a ton of it, and then it gets huge.
And then giant baby head, and then oh my god, it's so.
So that's disturbing. But it's like Chipmunk Girl is upsetting to, but it's not anything like horrific. It is, but it isn't. You know what I mean? It's like
it's surrealist.
It's surreal.
Okay, here's what I just thought of this. I do think there's one influence on display here. One that I can spot. I'm not super insanely versed in the entire history of film, but I just happen to really, really enjoy a series of surrealist films. They're by this director named Man Ray. He's part of the Dada movement. Their whole thing was like basically anything can be art. They're famous for like collage work and like crazy surrealist films. Man Ray came up with these things. I think they're called rayographs. It's a shooting technique where basically you expose film to basically just shoot light. You like expose film to light and then throw shit on it, like grains of salt.
Interesting.
Or he famously did needles. He like dropped pins and needles past it, and what happens is everything exposes black as you're shooting because the whole film is exposed, but whatever you're dropping in front of it shows up as white. So if you if you drop shit right in front of the lens, I can show you what it looks like afterwards, and you'll be like, oh, this is some of the stuff we saw in Eraserhead. But when you do sand or grains of rice, it just looks like you remember the scene. I don't know if you were able to see it, but do you remember the scene when they blow the eraser dust and it's blowing behind his head? That looks like many of the shots from a Man Ray film. So I'm wondering, and by the way, Man Ray, if you watch, all of his films are on YouTube because he was making movies back in like the 40s. MANRAY, 2 words. Interestingly, given the movies we're watching this month, I discovered him through Jim Jarmusch.
Interesting.
Yeah, Jim Jarmusch, as a side project, toured the East Coast and did live scores to Man Ray films with his band Squirrel.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's super sweet. And but yeah, you can find all his movies on YouTube. They're fun if you're like into. It's more art than movie.
No, I can dig that though.
There's no plot. You're kind of watching like paintings, basically, like visual moving paintings,
like sand art.
They're fun. Yeah. I'll show you what I'm talking about when we're done. But God, I don't know what I was. I don't know.
Mouth sperm plus non-vaginal intercourse makes mutant babies. That was my.
All right, I wanted to get. Yeah, I'm glad you brought me back to that. The woman in the radiator.
Yes, Chipmunk Girl.
I have a different theory.
All right, not that she has his nuts in her mouth.
No, my theory is not nuts in mouth. Here's my theory. She's in. Okay, we've got radiator, warm place. She's in the center of it. She's moving around and dancing.
That's the only warm place, I would think. That's like the comfortable.
So now, stage in center of warm radiator, life-giving warm radiator, womb. She is egg. Because when she's moving from side to side, those weird like alien sperms are dropping and missing her and hitting the ground. Boom, hitting the ground. Boom, hitting the ground. And
I didn't see that they were falling because my.
You didn't see that they were falling? Really?
Nope.
They fall from the ceiling and miss her.
Oh my god!
And plat on.
Nope, I thought they were just on the.
No,
and they were hard to see then too. It took me a minute to determine what they were.
I got to see your copy. Like,
it's
what the fuck
garbage.
were you watching? So the sperms drop from the weird like alien sperms drop from the ceiling and miss her and bloop land, and she steps around them and moves around, and then she's after they've been on the ground for a time, like, you know, if sperm only lives so long,
then she
she
squishes
squishes them. So what I was thinking was the whole lady in the radiator thing is a metaphor for the sexual act. Because, you know, like radiator, warmth.
Right.
And the part of this is lifted from Lynch's interview in the documentary where he says he came up with the lady in the radiator idea out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, right, yes.
And then he's like, oh, this is going in my movie. We just got to figure
I hope that radiator is right for it. And it was.
Yeah, it was like this bizarre, anomalous radiator that had exactly what he needed. Which part of me wonders if he had seen that and it clicked. It was in his brain.
Yeah.
And it.
I'm sure that there was some of that going on.
But so he talks about, well, of course there would be a lady in his radiator because, you know, she'd be living there because that's where it's warm. And I was like, oh, life, warm. Womb, egg, because she's moving around and she's got that weird white, like all white face, white, like the way she, I don't know. That's where my head goes. Is that it's like...
Then his head pops off when he's in the radiator.
Kicked off by like a weird alien penis looking thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The length of time that scene continues is so incredible. I wrote down again
when he's
and again.
Like,
twisting his rod.
Yeah.
Anyway, his head pops off while he's in the... There's no way. Normally we could give people an overview, but what's the fucking plot of this movie? There isn't one. It's a series. It's like watching a nightmare. It's the American Nightmare. God damn it. I didn't think that this would be as difficult to talk about as it is.
It's rough though, because there isn't any through line. There's no structure. There isn't a narrative to have as your touchstone.
Yeah.
To come back to keep you on point. It's all just really weird shit. And then he ends up... I mean, the last frames of the movie are him hugging the chipmunk girl, right? In the bright light.
Yeah. He goes into the bright light, and there's like those flashes of white where, oh, God. Okay, other thing that I have to point out. I'm not even sure it's intentional on Lynch's part, but I can't imagine that it's not, because this movie took 5 years and everything he did was so important, like so intentional. Okay, it's right after the everything in heaven. Yeah. Okay, here it is. Singer dark. I wrote down, and most of my notes are really sporadic, but I wrote down singer dark room after image in heaven during the in heaven song. In heaven, everything is fine. In heaven, everything is fine. It's so fucking captivating and so simple. That's a man singing that, by the way. That she's lip syncing to a man actually singing that song. But they have her in close up, and if you're watching in a dark room like I was, or if you were watching in a movie theater, as I imagine this was intended to be watched, she's in close up, and she has a really distinct... She cuts a really distinct silhouette because she's all in white and the background is black. Watching in a dark room for a long time as she sings this song.
Oh, shit. Does that imprint onto your fucking...
Yeah,
oh,
it imprints on your retinas.
God damn it.
And then they cut to a medium wide shot, and she's centered in my experience of it was she's centered in her own silhouette that's burned into your eyes. The image, the after image that you have like stuck in your retinas for a little while forms a perfect halo of her silhouette around her dead center in it.
Stop it.
Dude, it blew my mind when I saw it. I'm like, this... Because you have to...
I feel so cheated.
You can't...
Watching this on DVD. I'm almost fucking pissed. Remember, like,
we're gonna watch this again.
The Searchers conversation
yeah.
where it made me long for the days of that true CinemaScope, because you can't get that transfer is not a true transfer because it isn't in CinemaScope. It was only in
because the film was degraded.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, dude. I want to see. I really do feel like I watched a completely different movie. Like, I watched the Cliff's Notes version of Eraserhead just because it was that grainy, and it was a bad it was like that when you make a copy of a copy of a copy of something.
And you start to get
it felt like I was watching a bootleg, which I actually think about it because I bought it on eBay. I think it may actually
been watching a bootleg
copy of it.
So I'm thinking, like, honestly, dude, any shoot me a text.
Perfect.
Come on over. I'll blast those speakers.
Oh, fuck
Oh,
yeah.
by the way, on this Criterion DVD, which I feel like I'm an advertisement for it now, but there's in the setup, the selection's called setup, and you'd think it'd be like sound and stuff.
Right.
It's to calibrate your TV properly so that the blacks show up right. Now, because I used my television as a monitor to edit a film, I actually did a professional grade calibration of my television, and my TV is calibrated absolutely perfectly for true reproduction of anything that you watch on it all the time.
My
So
God.
everything you see is exactly how it was originally mixed.
Intended.
So I checked it against David. It's the setup on the David Lynch DVD, which is designed to optimize the watching of Eraserhead on a standard HD TV, and it was fucking spot on. So, dude, I'll blast that. My 48-inch television. I'll turn my big ass speakers on. We'll turn the lights off.
Yes.
And then we won't talk to each other for a week because it'll fuck us up so bad.
Like,
But like, there's so many tiny little things in this movie that I think the best way to do this is to just start going through notes in order, because you take notes chronologically. Correct?
I'm just gonna rapid fire a bunch because my notes came from a very strange place.
Okay.
Because I didn't know how else to. Normally, when I watch a movie, I will make notes of certain things or ideas or thoughts that come into my head. For this one, I was almost being overly satirical about my note taking, and I think it's because it was grounding me.
Your notes.
My notes
It was
were
giving you something to
hold on to, because all of my notes are coming from a place of satire.
Like Bird recognizing the plants and I spit on your
Right.
grave.
Well, it's like, so, like, oh, that's a vagina is one of my notes. When you're going through the whole of the building of the.
Oh shit! Your copy probably fucked you up. Did you see the vagina on his little cabinet
No.
that he opened?
No.
Okay. Really quick, here's some stuff that you may have missed, Carl.
Oh fuck!
So when he walks out of when he goes downstairs, the second time he checks his mailbox, it's a little flower that he finds, like a black flower that he unfurls. I think it's made of metal. It's but it's a little black flower, and there's a worm in it, a little
I
white
saw the
worm.
little white worm. Yeah.
Okay, so he carries that around with him, worm inside a flower. I mean,
Yeah. Come on.
come on, we got worm and flower. Everyone knows what we're doing here. There's that bit where his wife at this point is sleeping next to him, and he gets up real quiet.
And he opens up that little.
Cupboard.
Yeah.
And he takes the worm out of the flower that he's been carrying around with him, and he puts it in the cupboard box thing and closes it again. And I want to point out, before I talk about the art that's on that cupboard, the way that Jack Nance, the actor who plays Henry Spencer, the way that Jack Nance opens that cupboard is so deliberate and measured and practiced. It's like watching like presentational art. There's no naturalism, but in the utter lack of naturalism, everything seems natural. The way that he opens it is like finger up on the bottom, open the left one, touch the handle of the other one. Oh, it's watching it. It just you're every single thing you see, you're like, it's the whole movie's uncanny valley. You're like, that's not right. Why is that not right?
Or like him opening up his dresser drawer that's filled with some like weird shit, and then he throws a coin into like a bowl of water or something.
Yeah,
like,
it's so strange and fun, dude. Like in an original cut, which doesn't end up in the movie, they filled a drawer with pudding and then covered the pudding with peas. Because shooting in black and white in such high contrast, it's not immediately apparent what you're seeing.
Yeah.
But anyway, on the cupboard door are two flowers facing each other, and their stems curl up to literally form labia.
Oh my god!
So he's putting
a worm inside the
vagina. Essentially.
No, I couldn't tell.
And that's right before he gets back. He sits back down in bed and realizes that there's this giant mutant sperm. Essentially, this movie sounds so weird when you.
I know, really.
But that's when he finds that the giant. They're literally like snake size, like gardener snake
they're like
long,
4 or 5 feet long.
And he's pulling them out of the bed. And what does he do? He hurls them towards the vagina cabinet. This movie's so awesome, Carl. Like the sentence that I just said is so incredible.
He takes the giant sperm out of the bed and throws them at the vagina cabinet.
At the vagina cabinet. But that's where he's throwing them at.
Yeah.
He's throwing them at, and I think that it's important that his wife is laying next to him, and there are all of these externalized...
Not only is she a bed hog, but she also grinds her teeth.
Oh, the clicking teeth was, dude. Yeah, like it's
Like,
just like her,
oh,
it's
God.
just like her mom. And
Damn
hearing
it.
that, like
Yeah.
that, she hits her teeth so hard. She's like clacking them, and you can hear them clacking. And the best part is when you've got big ass speakers, those clacks are like, caw, caw. Oh my God, it's amazing. But anyway, wait.
Go ahead.
Oh God, it's so easy. It's impossible not to jump around because everything's tied to everything.
I know.
But nothing's tied to anything. Okay, her weird like clacking teeth, like when she's sleeping and clacking. Do you remember her first fit?
Yeah, on the couch.
Yeah. So she
And
invites.
then mom starts brushing her hair, and the fit stops.
Well, it's not actually the hair that stops her. It's when Henry tells the truth.
Oh, shit.
Henry walks up to. She invites Henry over for dinner.
Yep.
And he
the
shows up.
litter of
You're
dogs
late, Henry
that sound
Spencer.
like birds, and the weird bookshelf that has like
I forgot about the
nesting in
dogs
it.
until
Yeah.
you said it, and then it's so fucking insane, dude. He comes inside to like meet her parents and
meet
have
the
her dinner.
girlfriend's parents, yeah.
Steps in, and you just hear like, and we turn over, like the camera cuts. And we see a mother dog laying there and a litter of puppies just frantically feeding. And they're so noisy. And they're sitting and trying to have a normal conversation. And you hear it the whole time.
Yeah,
In the background, it's just like... It's fucking disturbing.
Yeah.
This whole movie
And
is
it's all it is
nonstop
a mother
disturbing.
dog that is feeding her puppies. Which would normally
Why?
be a very like, oh, look
So
at the
why
puppy
does it
with the
fuck
pup-"
with you so much?
Because of the sound of it and how ferociously the dogs are eating, and that they're in the weird, like.
I think part of it is the absurdity too, because it's Mary. It's the X family, so it's
the X, right.
daughter X basically, and then there's Mr. X and Mrs. X, and it's they're credited as Mr. X, Mrs. X, and Ms. X is who he marries, but we know that Mr. X's name is Bill.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think it's Mary, but I'm just gonna call her Ms. X. Ms. X and Henry are sitting super far apart on the couch. The mother's sitting there being like weirdly detached from everything, and they sit in silence for like
A
30
long
seconds.
time.
I want to talk about the length of certain shots in this movie in a second, but like they're sitting there, nothing happening, and you seem like a nice boy, Henry, or like. So Henry, what do you do? This is what she says when the fit starts. She goes, "So Henry, what do you do?" And he goes, oh, "I'm on vacation." And she says, well, "What did you do?" And he goes, "No, I don't know," and doesn't answer and kind of evades the question. And Mary starts having a
seizure, yeah.
where she's like, but it's a weird seizure.
like,
Yeah, she like leans forward and her mouth opens and her eyes open real wide and she's like, and she's breathing, and her mom like grabs her face and is brushing her hair and just like looking at Henry. And the daughter just keeps having a fucking, like, you guys can't see it, but I'm doing the motion.
Yeah, doing the brush, yeah.
And Henry just like looks and he's like, what? It's not even like he's confused. He's just like blankly, like, it's like consternation where he's like, oh, she's having some
one
sort
of
of
those things.
event. And the mom's just like keeps talking to him. And then Henry goes, where does he work? He works at a printer or something.
Yeah, something.
So he's like, I work over at Don LaForge. I used to work at Don LaForge's print shop. And Mary immediately stops having a seizure and has a line the second she stops.
Like, that's like over now and just continues on.
Like the moment she stops her weird like seizure breathing, she's like, yes, he was very good over it. And she normalizes immediately and is like, yeah, he was very good over at Don's print shop, and has a line, and no one acknowledges that she just had a weird fucking seizure stroke. It puts you so on your heels,
what the fuck?
Constantly.
Because then, like, what else are we going to be subjected to?
Well,
right?
immediately after we're introduced to the best character in the movie, Bill.
Oh my god, I love Bill.
Thought I heard a stranger.
Thought I heard a stranger.
We got chicken tonight.
There's little.
What does he say?
Man-made
He says something like, "We got chicken tonight. Strange little things. They're man-made. Damn tiny. Small, tiny little things. Littler than my hand." And then he's like, he talks about being in plumbing.
Right. It's like, for like 35 years, look at my knees.
Yeah, well, he's like, people don't think plumbing's important, but it is, because it keeps your house warm and it moves your drain. And then like he pauses for a second, and then he starts like screaming and moving around the table to like get at Henry. And he goes like, "Look at my knees! Look at my knees!" And then the wife gets up and she's like, "Oh, come on, Bill. And she leads him away. But he's like, oh my God, like every interaction that you see, you're constantly, you're like a boxer who's getting punched in the face.
My favorite interaction between any two characters ever,
the mother and the grandma?
No, is between Bill and Henry once the parents leave, and Bill looks over at Henry after a long, long pause and says, "So, what do you know, Henry?" And Henry says, "I don't know. Not much of anything." And that's like it.
That's their whole
all
dialogue.
and then they just sit there and Bill just stares at him.
It's not, God damn your fucking bad version of this movie. Did you see the smile? Did you see Bill's Richter
Oh yeah,
grin?
yeah. Just
okay,
like,
and it doesn't. His
Doesn't
eyes
change.
squint down, and he holds perfect that exact
Joker grin,
grin,
yeah.
not a twitch, for like 4 minutes.
just staring.
Mom and daughter come back in and he doesn't even fucking move. He's still just like, and his eyes are kind of closed, and they even cut to a reverse and they match cut his smile. It's amazing. The filmmaking, without a doubt, is among the best I've ever seen in a movie. I think that's, if you could have students make this movie and it wouldn't work.
No.
But when you have a genius making this movie and everything is,
Say what you want, dude. David Lynch, man. His movies are weird as shit. Every single one of them,
Yeah.
weird as shit. Twin Peaks, weird as shit.
oh,
But
we're gonna
there
hit
is-
Blue Velvet this month.
There's
And that's a strange
some
ass movie.
just genius fucking filmmaking happening all the time. Inland Empire, we should probably watch. It's like a 4.5 hour fucking movie.
We should just do movies that are over 3 hours long.
I think that'd be
and that'll
fine.
be a theme for next year.
Jesus Christ.
Really quick, the moms. One of the weirdest things in the
mom
movie
has
is
another
the mom's
fit.
seizure.
Yeah.
because it's anyway.
It's when he's cutting the chicken and it's bleeding out over
Normally,
the place.
I like to carve. Would you like to carve, Henry? Yes, I'd be honored. And they give him the tiniest chicken. It's
And the biggest fucking knife.
the huge knife, giant fork, baby ass chicken, and he like barely touches it, and it starts pumping blood out from basically between its legs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like pouring blood out, and then its little legs start moving up and down.
Yeah, it's like-
and there's blood just filling his plate. And the moment that starts pouring out of the chicken, the blood.
The mom starts having a similar fit that the daughter did,
but hers is like
different.
sexual in
And it's
a
like
she's
yeah.
making like weird sexual sounds. Her eyes are rolled up in her head, and what is really fucked with me is her tongue.
Right.
Her tongue is like and they again, I don't know how. I'm sure that they did like 55 takes because everyone's
had to.
like that's kind of funny, right? But everyone looks so like
And you get the sense that this has happened before because she gets, I'm going to take mom to the kitchen.
The daughter starts sobbing and runs to the kitchen. Bill is like unperturbed, does not give a
Doesn't faze Bill.
Doesn't faze Bill at all. But I'm like literally the chicken, this tiny little like chicken the size of your hand is pouring blood out of it. This is not like a quick in and out scene. That thing is bleeding for like 2 minutes, and the mom just keeps going. And she doesn't stop, and her tongue just keeps flipping around, and her eyes are back. And you know what I think? I honestly think that the fit there is meant to be some sort of weird, like stand-in for an orgasm. And that's why the daughter's so devastated by it, and then why Bill doesn't look at her, because he's like, out of sight, out of mind, just like let it rest. And that's why Henry's so fucked up by the whole thing. But what do you make of that and the chicken? I have no idea. I want to watch this movie like 200 more times.
No, that's just it. Like, I'm probably going to watch this movie 1,000 times.
1,000 times?
Yes.
Yeah, fuck yeah,
And
dude.
Danielle's going to be like, why are you watching this
Please
movie
don't watch
again?
this anymore. Like, order the Criterion tonight.
Oh, no, I'm going to. Like, I don't have the money for it, but I'm going to buy it. Because I need to see that transfer, dude. My TV is stupid big, and so it deserves to be on, like...
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God. So that whole... Go ahead.
So...
I've been going and going.
No,
Yeah,
it's okay.
keep going.
So I made an off comment about wanting to design an Eraserhead pinball table. So like, it was like not even joking.
You want to design a Eraserhead pinball machine? Okay.
Follow me here.
I'm with you.
So. No, I just don't. Oh,
Do you
'cause with
have
women,
anything?
No, yeah, like with
What's
the
going
women
on?
in the radiator, because there's so many different things that pinball is one of my favorite things on the planet. Because there are certain rules that you have to follow. Like the structure of a pinball machine in order to get the most value or to get the high score. Like, there are so many rule sets, and you've got to spend time, a lot of time, to figure out a table. It's rule sets, how exactly to play the ball off different bumpers and where the fucking tension is, and it's so meticulous to be really, really good at a pinball table. Just one in particular would take hours to master. Days.
Pinball Wizard is making more sense all of a sudden.
But I just want to, and you're sending balls around the table, and so you could like, which is very sort of you can put balls in the, I don't know. It's I wish I could explain it better, but like when I was watching the radiator scene and a couple other moments like this would make for a great pinball table, because they've done it with like the Twilight Zone. They've done it with different. I'm going way off the fucking reservation on this.
You really are, but I kind of like this. This is very in keeping with this film.
Because because that's just it. It's like, this would be the weirdest fucking thing to make into a pinball table. But they've done it with every IP out there. They've done it with Doctor Who. They've done it with Twilight Zone. They've done it with the Addams Family. They've done some really off the wall ones.
There's really good Simpsons ones. I think they did a Clerks one.
They've done one on the Wizard of Oz, and they've become very modernized and using LED screens to actually play footage from a movie, like on the backdrop of the pinball table, and the sound bites that you use too. So you could have like the Bill saying, "Oh, my knees, my knees," if you get like the certain bonus or whatever.
Look at my knees.
Or you could have what I want to make my new text alert, which is, "Okay, Paul." when the buzzer is ringing and the
oh my god, yeah, when he comes out and oh my,
the kid with the head walks in, it's like, okay, Paul.
Hey there, son. What do you got there?
Right.
Oh my.
But it's like, because it would be the
desk, Paul.
This would be the last thing or IP that you would think of to make into a pinball machine. Yeah. But I think that it would lend itself so naturally to a physical, mechanical pinball machine.
This would be the pinball machine that, like, 10-year-old me. I was never huge into pinball machines, but there was one at the airport. My dad used to travel internationally a lot when I was growing up, and we'd wait for him at the airport, and I'd play the pinball machine, and I loved it because it was Friday the 13th themed, and it was like they managed to make a pinball game scary. Yeah. So it was weird. I think there was like Jason's machete would pop out of the board and like block the ball when it came down a certain angle, and it would startle you. This would fascinate like 10-year-old me.
Yeah, and if you get the right speaker set up, you could have that. And
can we talk really quick about the soundtrack?
Yeah, please. Sorry, but
no.
A weird diatribe on a pinball table, but
dude, that's what this is for. We're not because we're not Siskel and Ebert. We can be like,
you know what? This would
be a good fucking pinball machine, right? And we don't have to at the end of it be like, well, I recommend it highly, 5 out of 5 stars. We can say stuff like, fucking movie, fucking shit, fucking you should fucking watch it.
Yes.
And no one's gonna be like, well, that's not very highbrow. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I really enjoy the layman's film critic thing we've got going on.
Fair
here.
Enough.
Film lovers is what we are. But the score in this. Now we're gonna watch another movie this month that has my favorite soundtrack of all time. I bought it on vinyl the second that I finished watching the movie. I went online and I ordered it directly because vinyl is the highest fidelity reproduction that you can get of sound. So
that is still true, right? That vinyl is because what you are listening to is what was recorded.
Depending on your only, there's 2 caveats. One, only if it was originally recorded on tape and not recorded digitally. Because when you record on tape, it records an actual wave. And when you digitize it,
it makes it into
when you compress it, it turns it into bits. So your wave, if you zoom way in on your wave, you can think of it like pyramid steps. That's what you have now. Now at really, really high fidelity digital recordings, like I can't remember exactly what it is. It's like we recorded this podcast at 4824, which is like 48 kilohertz, 24 bit, which is pretty good because I'm going to compress it to MP3, so it doesn't really matter, but the wave sounds like really, really high fidelity. If you go above that, like you can go to like 128 kilohertz at 64-bit. That's like the digital quality is so high you can't tell the difference.
Okay.
But on a really high quality system, like truly exceptional speakers or insanely good headphones, if you listen to a vinyl recording of something and you listen to even the highest fidelity digital recording of something, Now there are like insane formats, like lossless digital formats that are only sound engineers will hear the difference. But if you have an okay setup and you have an MP3 and you have a vinyl recording, the difference is immediately noticeable.
Oh wow.
That's why DJs. I like our digressions in this episode, but that's why DJs spin.
This is a movie to digress on because holy
for
fuck.
sure, especially because we're talking about. If I could find this on vinyl, this soundtrack, I would immediately. I'm going to go and hunt this down, and if they made a vinyl recording from the tapes, I'll buy it as much as it fucking costs. I don't care. DJs will spin vinyl because certain songs, like when you listen to the MP3, because of the way a compressor works, a compressor is one of the ways they master a track so it sounds good on all audio.
Right. It makes it like a universal sort of.
Right, so it'll sound good if you listen on your TV, in your car, and your iPod. It all sounds good everywhere. The way that the compressor works is it'll cut.
The high and the low, right? Or
I think it's gating. They use gating, and it'll cut the really high frequencies and the really low frequencies. But some pop songs, the way that they're recorded, have like. They're meant to kick on your subs if you have a bitchin' system. But if you don't, they can clip that so that it doesn't fuck with your speakers and mess your sound quality up. But I was talking to a couple of DJs a few years back, and they were saying they only spin vinyl because if they're trying to play it on like off their computer or off their MP3 player, their subs don't even kick on. But when you play it on vinyl, that whole sound wave is there. So when they hit that low frequency, that low frequency exists, whereas in a compressed format, it doesn't.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's why I bought vinyl, and yes, vinyl is still, if it's recorded to tape, because if it's recorded digitally,
it doesn't matter. It's already
in bit format, so that's what you're hearing. It's just that they really fuck you too. If you go to a record store and look at new vinyl, they'll be like, mixed from 100, like the high quality, avoid that. Anything that's mixed from digital, avoid it. Anything that says mixed from original masters,
that's the one you want to
pick that shit up.
Perfect.
That's why I like old vinyl. It's cheap and it's always mixed from original masters. Anything pre-digital.
Yeah, this soundtrack isn't so much a soundtrack as it is.
It's like ambient noise. Yeah, black noise is a good word for it, but it's a mixture of like the sound of like clanking, like not, and there's not. It's not. You
said
clank,
like an
clank,
old
clank.
Furnace in a way. It's
it
like,
does.
Yeah.
It sounds like an old.
There's a metronome happening, but it's not. It's like because in an old house, I grew up with one of those old octopus furnaces in the basement.
Yes, the big
huge boiler with
ones.
those huge arms extending from it, and it had certain noises and sounds that it would make that sounded random at first.
But if you heard
but
them
if you lived
times,
in that house for 5 years, you're like, there is a certain
pattern to
regularity to it.
Part of the sound
that's what this is doing.
It's that first sound of a big boiler, like when it first kicks on. Yeah, like that sound is in the background often, like that. Like yes, the like sputtery sort of like, and it's super low frequency too. Yeah. But also there's like the pings and tings of cooling metal.
Ting, ting. Yeah, that like the expanding, contracting.
The expanding, contracting metal sound is in there. There's the sound of steam. The steam appears often, but
constantly almost the sound of like a storm, just the wind.
There's wind everywhere. And in the documentary about Eraserhead, they mix wind into his interview.
Yes, they sure do.
But come on, it was fun.
No,
because it's David Lynch. You're like, you rolled your eyes, and I was like, don't you dare.
No, that was a good role.
The wind was great.
That was a great role. That was a good role. And I love how they chose to do a static close-up of a phone whenever she is talking.
It's awesome.
That's awesome. That was intentional.
It's very Twin Peaksy, but like in the soundtrack to this, there's always the sound of a storm happening. Like there's always wind, or there's the sound of like banging. Like you feel like you're in a really old building. And one thing that's pointed out in that Lynch on Lynch interview that I read, it's always feels when you're in Henry's apartment, you get the sense that it's always loud in his apartment. It's never like we're inside now, so it's quiet. You go inside and it's like,
and the radiator's kicking on.
And outside you hear like, there's wind. His apartment is uproariously loud, and it's equally as loud when you go outside. So the soundtrack builds like relentless pressure everywhere, even when he's just laying on his bed and like la 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 la. There's like whistling wind and like ding, ding, boom, boom, in the background. It's so the soundtrack. If you did anything else, this movie would lose something.
Yeah,
it's incredible. It's one of my 3 favorite soundtracks of all time.
And
the
it's
other
non-musical. It's just
there's no score to this.
Yeah.
Well, there is one song. There's the In Heaven.
In Heaven.
By the way, did you know the Pixies often play that song on tour? They play that song live all the time.
No shit.
Isn't that fucking great? Doesn't that make you like the Pixies? I mean, you love the Pixies.
Yeah.
But like, they just went up like one little bump in my head. I'm like, yeah. Good for you playing David Lynch songs.
Oh, so Eraserhead, I think that its tagline should be worst, period, vacation, period, ever, period.
Because he's on vacation the whole film.
Worst vacation ever.
This movie should be an ad for Disneyland. They should buy the rights. Disney should buy this film and be like, vacation at Disneyland, or this could happen to you.
Or this could happen to you.
And then the ad is the whole film.
Genius.
Like a little Disney, and then the whole movie plays,
movie.
and then back to your regular programming at the end. Disney's got that kind of money. They're like, a 60-second spot's going to be $10,000, and Disney's like, play the whole movie.
Play the whole movie.
Sir, let me punch these numbers in. It's going to be $1 million every time it plays. And they're like, fuck you. That's Iron Man's royalties from the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
So play the whole fucking movie. So every episode.
We make that much money every time Iron Man farts. Like,
a new episode of Roseanne lasts like 3 days because David Lynch's Eraserhead keeps playing in between. Dude, I'd watch Roseanne if they played Eraserhead like 6 times.
That would be the only thing that would get me to watch an episode of it.
Oh my god. Okay. Do you want to jump? I have notes kind of linear because I wrote them as we went. I know you're sort of like pastiches of notes.
Oh, it's so weird. Like going through reading these, I'm like, I was tripping or something when I wrote these notes. They're all so very strange.
I want to go back to Grandma when she makes. There's a bit where
she ain't stirring shit.
She makes There's a bit where the Mrs. X is like putting salad greens
together.
and she rinses it, and then behind her, like by the back door, an old woman, Grandma X we'll call her, is just sitting as still as I've ever seen a human being sit, motionless as fuck. So she's sitting there like totally motionless, and Mrs. X turns with the salad bowl and puts it in her hands. And then she takes 2 salad, like tossing forks, and puts one in her one hand and one in her other. And then she gets behind Grandma X, who is utterly still, like zero motion. And then she tosses the salad with Grandma's hands in Grandma's lap behind her, doing all the work. When she's done, she like uncurls Grandma's hands off of the implements and sets them in the sink, and then picks the salad up and then puts
screws a cigarette in Grandma's mouth.
And lights a match, puts it under there, and you see smoke coming out, and that smoke is the first indication that Grandma's even alive.
Yep.
She could have been dead that whole scene if she hadn't like started puffing the smoke, and ends up when we cut back to her later, she smoked like the whole cigarette.
Yep.
But 5,000 kudos to that actress, because she
doesn't fucking
there's not
flinch,
a flinch,
doesn't breathe, doesn't bat an eye.
There's nothing. There is zero indication that she's alive, and then that little puff of smoke comes
and it's
out.
not like she takes a big drag, but just enough to indicate that she
doesn't even screw her lips around it.
No.
She just like you can get the sense that she like
pressed down ever so gently just to keep the cigarette in her mouth.
I can't even like I'm trying to do it like the thing where you like don't move your face but inhale and then puff out. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could, but that is one of the spookiest. Everything in this movie is the spookiest thing, but that's really unnerving. Where it's like, she fucking dead? And then it's like puff of smoke, and you're like, oh my god, she's just what? Go, say it.
You never saw Tideland, did you?
I didn't.
Okay. Okay, so speaking of dead person performances,
what am I right?
Tideland. It's a Terry Gilliam movie.
Ah, you and your Terry Gilliam.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
He's one of my favorite.
Here's where I think the films that I've seen that I think make little homages to Eraserhead. What year did Texas Chainsaw Massacre come out?
70-something, right?
70-something, but did it come out before this or after this?
Shall I do a research?
Do that real quick, because I'm going to say That old woman, like making her toss the salad so she's still part of the family.
Oh,
even
it's
though,
very like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
the original.
1974 was Texas Chainsaw.
So Texas Chainsaw predates
this by a few years.
So this reminds me very much so of the scene in Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre where Pa is like almost dead and can't swing the hammer, but they want him to kill the girl.
That's
so
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
That's one. I just watched the movie not too long ago. When they make him hit the girl in the head, that's the first movie. Yeah, your brain just exploded.
Shit, it sure did. I thought there was a second one.
The second one's even like totally off the wall wacky, but that's
the wacky, happy, fun time Texas
it's like
Chainsaw
it's the difference between Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the same progression between films where they went for it in the first one and then realized that there was an incidental vein of humor and then just cut that vein open and let it. But yeah, so it reminds me of that bit because they keep putting the hammer in Grandpa's hand and making her hit this girl in the head, but he fucking can't do it. It's not working, and the scene goes on so long that it becomes like you're like, someone kill her.
Someone kill her.
Just
right.
kill her, please. Don't make me watch her like get wounded again. You're just barely
hit on the head.
They're hitting
with
her,
the
but
hammer.
like her head's splitting open a little,
Yeah.
and it's so awful to watch. And this is the same way because Grandma's not moving.
She's not doing anything.
And they're like,
but she still wants to make.
They're like,
part
there
of
you
the
go.
family.
You're part of the family. Make the salad. I wrote down the American Nightmare.
Oh my god.
The dinner preparation scene is the American fucking nightmare, man. It's so weird. And speaking of cutting veins open, while Mom is making salad, Bill and Henry are sitting out in the kitchen or in the dining room, and Bill goes, "Look at this arm. I had some surgery." Right? Dude, it's so messed up. He's like, he holds his arm out to Henry and he's like, look, he's holding the fork and the knife and he sets down the chickens and he's like, I had surgery on this arm and the doctor said I'd never use it again. But I was rubbing it and rubbing. He starts rubbing his arm. He's like, I rub my arm every day until I got
some feeling back.
No, not feeling, but he's like, I got some use back, and now I can grab things. But it's numb, and he punches his arm so fucking hard. I was just like, because when you get punched in the like tendons, how your arm gets that electric shock. I'm like, that actor probably just like wrecked his arm. It zinged him good. He like punches his arm, and he's like, now it's numb, can't feel the thing. And he gets like quiet, and he looks at Henry, and he goes, I'm afraid to cut it. And then he like disengages from the conversation and like turns back to the table. But that line, hearing when he looks at him and it's like for 1 second he becomes a human and he's confessing something to Henry because his arm.
Then the moment's over.
Right, because his arm is like totally numb. But he says, he pauses. So he's like, I'm afraid to cut it. And then he's done. And that's it. Hey, would you like to carve? Normally, I carve. And you're like, what? Are we just going to gloss over what you fucking just said?
Nothing? We're good? We're moving on?
Your arm was dead. You rubbed it until it was able to be used again, but it's totally numb, and you kind of want to cut it to see what happens. What the fuck is going on? Dude, it's then we get the weird like, I'm cutting up the little thing. And blood chicken, mom orgasm. Not sure exactly how to unpack that. I got to watch this movie like 99 more times. The women leave, and there's like, this is the perfect time to talk about it. David Lynch's, well, there's I gotta shout out the cinematographers too because they all worked on it together. So we've got the cast listed first. Okay, David Lynch, written, produced, and directed. Camera and lighting. There's 2 DPs on this movie. The first one is Herbert Cardwell, or Herb as David Lynch calls him in all of the documentaries. That guy was only able to shoot for 2 years, I believe, and then David Lynch left school, and Herbert Cardwell left school, and he kind of drifted away from the project, and then died really young.
Yeah, he died
at 35
or something. Yeah.
And some of the stories that he tells about Herb are fucking weird. But you get
the flying one,
and the car one where he's talking gibberish
drives perfectly, and like he started going off the road speaking gibberish,
and get higher and higher, and then he gets shaken and he like comes out of his weird trance, and you're like,
David Lynch is not a real person.
No, there's no way he is. There's no way he is. He's like,
he's not.
You know what he is? He's like a figment of someone's imagination. Like someone got struck by lightning, and part of their imagination like became David Lynch.
Oh my god.
Like
he just came into being
in their death throes. Part of their brain like was animated into a being, and that is David Lynch. He's so out there, but weirdly, you can't look away from him when he's talking, even when he's saying stuff that you know cannot possibly be real.
There's an interview with him, and all he's doing is making quinoa. And it's the most like mesmerizing shit. And then he tells a story about taking a train to Italy or something, and that's the most mesmerizing story. But just him explaining how to make quinoa is like,
tell me more.
What the fuck?
What else can you
What
cook?
about your pot? Is what? And then
right, you're writing everything down. Well, that's what I love. Is he's like, well, Herb Cardwell was the DP on Eraserhead, and you're like, okay, here he's going to talk about the camera and the shot composition. He goes, the thing about Herb was he was such a great driver. He would put both feet on he would feather the stops, no rocking, no shaking. And you're like, he's not talking about Eraserhead at all. He's just talking about how good his DP can drive. And you're fucking fascinated. You're like, how good was this guy at driving?
Right? And he also flew a plane?
And he flew,
amazing.
And he flew across the country with a blind guy as his navigator. And you're like, what are you even saying, David Lynch? Tell me more. God damn it.
But then he doesn't remember working in a restaurant for 4 summers.
Did I do that really?
Oh,
yeah.
I don't remember any of that.
I don't remember that at all. Like his mind. David Lynch is so interesting as a human being.
Oh my God.
Like,
what would you do if you were able to interview like David Lynch? I would just like, it would be the most weird.
I would just say like one word at a time to him. It'd just be like, shadows, and then just let him talk. Mm-hmm. And anything he said, I'd be like, that is the definitive
melatonin.
Text. Exactly. Just give him a word and let him go. And then bring someone from his past to be like, hey, David, remember that time that we, for 4 years lived in this hovel and we did this thing every day and we used to play chess with the homeless people who had no eyes? And David Lynch would be like, no, I don't recollect that at all. Anyway, this guy I knew met for 5 minutes. He was such a driver. You're like, you lose huge chunks of your life, but you remember these weird, obscure details. But that's
how his brain works.
That's his filmmaking style too.
But I mentioned it very early, and I wasn't even joking. I think he's huge into transcendental meditation.
No, I know. Yeah, I did.
He
know
does
that.
it twice a day. He's been doing it for like 45 years. Twice a day, once in the morning, once at night.
When you say transcendental meditation, what are you exactly talking about? Because I might have something on this. Go.
It's you leaving yourself.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
And like exploring, and like figuring shit out, and then coming back. Right.
Uh-huh.
It's sort of a sense of leaving your physical being, as far as I understand what his version of I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Sort of like not out of body experience. What's it called?
Almost like vision questing in a way.
I see what you're saying. There's a word for it, but I can't remember. Astral projection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what I
know that he did that and became a vegan or vegetarian at the same time. I can't remember. I think it's vegetarian because this was like in the 80s, and I don't think vegans were very big back then. But yeah, I had read that, and I talk about it on the other podcast I do with my wife, Chapman and Robin, but I, for a long time, used to practice what I called Gnostic meditation, which is basically where you sit and breathe and meditate like the standard way, but your focus is not on your breath. It's remaining utterly and completely motionless. And you do it for a long period of time. And the thing that it was very, very interesting because I'd meditated as when I was young, like the breathing thing. But when your focus becomes like, don't move your tongue, don't swallow, don't move like every single limb, fingertip, everything, don't move. After about 15 minutes, your brain starts telling you to move.
Right.
And you fight against it. And what happens is, it's going to sound weird that I did this intentionally, but what I found is that at about 20 minutes, you start hallucinating really, really fucking hard. At least I did.
Wow.
So like I would get, I described it to Bird as basically like your brain starts trying to trick you into moving because it's panicking because you're not moving at all. Like I would
hearing voices or like seeing things are trying to get you to like jump or move.
I was the most powerful experience I ever had. Again, like this is all
because you're not blinking either.
Well, I would keep my eyes like just let them relax how they wanted to, and then not open them. So usually it'd be closed because otherwise they'd dry out like crazy. Right. But it was I'm sitting in bed, Marquette, doing this like Gnostic meditation. It was my longest session. I did it ultimately. It was like 40 something minutes.
Holy shit.
But at about what I guesstimate, because I couldn't see the timer that I had going, but about like 25 minutes in, I heard Bird come home, slam the door, walk into the bedroom and close the bedroom door. And I like knew it was her. and I could hear footsteps and stuff. But Bird was gone at work. Bird was not home. But I swear to Christ, I heard the door close. I heard her come into the bedroom. I heard the footsteps. At one point, I heard, because we had Trinity at that time, my dog. Trinity came into the room and jumped up on the bed and sat in my lap, but the bedroom door was closed and locked. So she didn't do that. But my brain told me emphatically that that's what happened. Like, oh, the dog's in here. You better get her out. Better move. And at like the peak of me doing this, this particular day, I was like, nope, this isn't like not real. Keep still. And you really learn a lot about yourself. So when I read about the transcendental thing with David Lynch, I was like, I kind of get it. It really is very weird. It's not. I don't do it anymore, mostly because I don't have the time or patience.
Right.
But like, it's an experience outside of. It sounds so woo woo hippy dippy, but it's an experience outside of like everything in
our
your day-to-day.
brains are so incredible.
It freaked me right out, man. Like, you come out of the meditation and you're like, what am I doing to myself? Where like my
brain is like trying to push it. Dude, move.
Exactly. Well,
I think you're dead right now, but I'm your brain. I know you're not dead, but I need confirmation that you are not dead.
Yeah.
This is your brain doing that.
Yeah, I think it's literally like your mind being like, okay, no motion for this long is not normal. There's a thing called a myoclonic jerk.
Oh yeah, that's a sleep disorder for some people. I have that.
Right.
I will go into not seizure, but my body sometimes between sleep and waking will get locked in that space.
Yes,
and I can't move, and I can't breathe, and I get that white and that.
There's a word for it. Yeah,
and I'm also still fucking dreaming, so I'm awake and aware of my surroundings, but I'm also bringing in weird shit.
Yeah,
I've actually and I'm screaming, but like. It's happened a couple of times sleeping next to Danielle.
Yeah.
And I'm always worried that I'm actually screaming but never can tell because it's all happening in my head.
There's a word for exactly this thing, but I've had similar experiences twice, and it was usually when I was doing this Gnostic meditation thing religiously, but not like as a religion, but regularly. And one of the hallmarks of it is the irrefutable feeling that someone is behind you.
Yeah, that's fucking...
It's awful, dude.
It is. It's a dark, and it's always a very dark sort of...
Yep. Like a dark,
and you want to turn around,
dark
but you
figure.
can't.
You can't because you're frozen.
Yeah.
It's called sleep paralysis.
That's exactly what it is.
It's called sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And it's basically your brain has a defense mechanism, like a safety mechanism, where you're sleeping. You can't. Your autonomic. The nerves.
It doesn't allow you to move, so you're not going to
roll out
yourself.
of a tree or roll off a cliff. So your body is paralyzed when you're sleeping. But there's a thing that happens called sleep paralysis, where you partially wake up, but your body's still frozen and paralyzed. And I know I've had exactly that.
It happens to me. Sometimes I'll go through spurts where it happens a lot, and then it won't happen for a year.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. And you know what's weird is when I don't have it happen to me for a long time, I kind of miss it a little.
And then it happens, and it's a really bad one. And you're like, nope, I'm fine. I was fine without this happening. This is great.
So it's such an intense experience, though. And the weird thing is, I remember the last couple times that it happened. Jesus.
I know. I keep looking over it, but Jesus Christ, my brain.
And you know what's weird is, even though this is all like weird tangent, it's all relevant to this movie.
Because this is
the type of shit that this movie is sleep paralysis. It is like Gnostic hallucination. It's all
seeing
that
the thing out of the corner of your
dude.
eye and like.
But I remember you trying to scream, not like I'm screaming, but like, if I can just get a sound, I can wake up. So I would be laying in bed. It was awful. Like Bird next to me, and
oh my god,
you're in your head. You are screaming, but your body's not doing it.
Nope.
So what you're getting is like, but in your head it's like, and then finally you get like a, and then you're awake, and then you're like,
hello everyone.
And you're looking around, and
Yep.
dude, it's super intense and super crazy, much like Eraserhead. So anyway,
yeah. Sleep paralysis, fun for everyone.
You know what? That's god.
If that happens to me tonight, I'm just gonna be like, fuck.
Just put on go out in your living room and put on Eraserhead. Yeah.
Oh my god, Danielle's gonna shit.
I mean, there's stuff
I have 7.1 surround sound headphones. That's what I'm going to do.
Is
I might my Sony's. I'm gonna put those fuckers on.
Yeah.
and just like.
Well,
I should have done that the first time. Had I known the sound was so important, I would have piped it through my
well, the
surround
original
sound
mix is mono.
Right.
The Criterion Blu-ray, which you can pick up on, blah blah blah. I'm just pimping the Blu-ray at this point. But they remixed the audio with David Lynch and split it into full Dolby surround sound.
Oh my god, that's amazing!
I know, I love it so much. But we haven't talked about what I think for most people will be the most fucking mind-warping portion of this film, which is the baby. We talked a little bit about why
like
it's
the cutting of the swaddling clothes, but it's just because it's discarded on the dresser, swaddled, laying awkwardly on his back with a pillow that doesn't have a pillowcase on it, and it's just sort of just
it's small
laying there,
too.
small, and it's not human in any.
Well, no, when the mom says, like, did you have sexual intercourse? There's a baby. And the Ms. X comes in and she's crying. And she's like, not even sure it's a baby. And the mom's like, it's at the hospital right now. And once you're married, you can pick it up. And then she walks away. And Henry and Ms. X are looking at each other, like, left there. And she's crying. And she goes, you don't mind, do you? And Henry goes, what's that? And she goes, getting married. And he goes, no, not really. And then they get married. When the baby gets sick and he's got that humidifier and it's just like blasting this like steam over its head and it's doing that weird and that breathing. There's so much is the upsetting sounds. Yeah. I was talking to you when I showed you what the Blu-ray restoration looks like, and I was saying, look at the texture of the planet. Look at the texture of the man in the planet, the sick guy by the window who has that like same sickness that the baby seems to have,
and releases the sperm.
Well, but what I was wondering was, does it? Because the sperm comes out of Henry's mouth before he pulls the lever.
Pulls the lever, the sperm goes. Pulls the lever,
No, because the sperm comes out of his mouth,
right,
and it's floating there. When he pulls the lever, it flies off the screen, and because it flies to the right, I assume that Henry's actually upside down and it's falling.
Oh, okay.
So I think that our orientation is all fucked up in the beginning, right? Yeah. Like there is no up or down. We're in some weird like liminal. Not liminal. It's not liminal. That's the wrong use of that word. But this whole movie's loaded with liminal shit. We're looking through windows. We're flying through holes in ceilings. There's doorways everywhere. Like this whole movie is just liminal space, which is great. Because I was like, liminal. I can't wait to do this podcast and just say that word 99 times. But yeah, that the texture, the visual texture of the film when he's walking home and there's the mud, the texture of the mud. There's the texture of the brick. There's the texture of the hair. We do a lot of...
This is the thing. I missed all of the texture because of my shit quality DVD that I watched.
And we will rectify that when we spin this flick at my place next time. But there's the texture of the hair. And so much of the movie seems to be... There's the milk in the bed. There's the scene we didn't see, the pudding in the drawer. Like it's all, and then we do close-ups of bubbling water in the bubbler, and we do. There's the when he turns the lights off on the sick baby, and we get that weird like close-up where its eye moves, and it's under like this filmy. It looks like a fish,
like sick film almost, like it's glazed over with sickness.
It's literally like
a dead fisheye almost.
But it moves. It looks, it like turns and like rolls in the darkness, and it's that single image. There's the cutting the baby open is really fucking like upsetting, and there's weird stuff with like squishing the sperm when the lady's singing in heaven, but that what a weird sentence. But that one shot, it's literally like a second and a half long, but that eye rolling under the film in the darkness with that sharp cut, beautiful lighting that they do is the single most nightmarish thing I've ever seen in my life. And it has haunted me for 3 nights. I watched this movie like 3 nights ago, and I think about that. I've thought about that eye every single day. You know what's
crazy about this movie is it disturbed me in my soul watching it. It's stuck with me for almost 3 days now. I cannot wait to fucking watch this thing on Blu-ray. Like,
know.
it's the weirdest fucking thing.
I
like,
would watch. Yeah, I would like.
I cannot wait to watch this movie again.
Yeah, me neither. It's the strangest.
How weird is that?
It's easily like we just watched all the I Spit on Your Grave movies, and this is definitely more. It sticks with you way more than those movies.
God.
This movie fucks with you in such a weird way. It like rewires your head. It haunts you. It delights you. Like this is the first time we did this podcast. We've done this podcast at night many times, but we keep glancing into the
looking out in the kitchen
because there's like
I don't really want to fucking drive home. I live 2.5 minutes down the street. I don't want to fucking. I'm gonna be like peeping my rearview mirror the whole time.
Don't even do it. Don't look in your rear view. Stay away from your rear view.
Stop it,
dude.
I want to go home and see my girlfriend.
It's just like, but at the same time, I want to watch it. I want to watch it right now. But like, this movie is amazing. But, God, that like nightmarish eye. And what I was saying, okay, visual texture. I've rarely seen somebody. You get the sense that Lynch. A lot of what Lynch is showing you is. Like, I was talking with Bird about this the other day when we did one of our Chapman and Robbins. We were talking about a specific shade of blue. And what I'm thinking is, like, very rarely do you run into a filmmaker who sees... You can tell that he's just seen a texture and thinks it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And, like, he's like, this might not serve a purpose, but
I like it.
So
we're going to... Yeah.
Come and look at this. It's like he's... There are parts of this movie that I wish I could run my hand over. And he shows you that again and again and again. Like, you're like...
Or like you're disturbed by it, looks really... But you kind of want to stick your fingers in it.
Right, exactly.
See what it feels like.
There's, like for example, when he cuts the baby open and then you're like, oh, God, this blood, this fluid. And then all of a sudden it's like this, like, weird tactile sand foam. And it's not a little bit. It's like...
a ton of it.
Gallons of it just, like, pour up and make this mountain of, like, sandy, foamy... Like it's like it looks like styrofoam foam,
sand, everything.
But again, there it is. It's a texture. It's an indescribable texture. But when you see it, you're repelled and repulsed and confused.
But I also want to know what that feels.
You want to touch
like.
it. Yeah. God damn it. But what I was saying about my whole point was, I think that the audio is the same thing. You know what's that shit called where like people whisper in your ears or like run their hands over fabric and it's played stereo. It's like CMR, CDR, but people basically you can go online and look. I can't remember what it's called. Bird introduced me to it. She was like, check this out, this is fucking weird. But basically there are whole like audio tracks online. YouTube is a great place to find them, where it'll just be like the sound of a person.
Oh, like running their hands over
ASMR,
paper.
That's what it's called. Running their hand on paper, or like rubbing silk together. There's some that are just people like it'd be a woman saying like, I think that you're great. I think it's just whispering. And then there's ones that are like mouth noises or like wool, and it's just the sound of wool being rubbed together. And some people react in a really visceral way to those sounds. There's some that are just pulsing frequencies, like whoa, 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 whoa.
And it
like,
makes you like not. It's a negative reaction.
No,
to it,
it's well, I mean, like for me, the sound of wool being the worst sound I can think of in the world is a bootliner being pulled out of a vent.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really specific sound, and it like right now, it like
mine is a fork on a plate. Scratching.
See, that doesn't bother me. I like guitar feedback, so like really high freak doesn't bother me. But that sound of like a wool bootliner being pulled out of a vent, wool on metal, it grosses me right out. It's awful.
Oh.
Yeah, no, but like so the thing with the ASMR is if you listen to it for a long time, it'll basically allegedly in some people induce like an altered state of consciousness. Not like you're super high, but it'll like relax you. Or it'll like make your skin tingle and make you feel warm. I've never really run into that. Some of the weird frequency like wub 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 stuff will like kind of put you in like a real trancey mode. But this movie, the sound,
even talking about it makes me feel weird.
it's strange, dude. Like go fall down that rabbit hole for a little bit. But the soundtrack, the score, that like weird black noise you were talking about, and then also like the mom's. Like that thing, and the sound of the banging radiator. Like I feel like there's a aural texture to this film in the same way that Lynch is showing us, like, look at the texture of the planet. Look at the texture of this weird foam. Look at the hair on the floor. When you listen to this on like when you can hear those sounds, you're like, when we watch Only Lovers Left Alive at the end of this month, that score, a lot of that score is guitar feedback being modulated and fucked with like lyre played over it.
Oh,
so the
cool.
guitar feedback creates like these washing waves. So it's not like now we're listening to a score where it's like dun 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 dun.
Right.
It's like hearing like, and it's a guitar feeding back.
Beautiful.
It is absolutely stunningly beautiful, and I feel like this movie does it in a darker way.
Right.
Oh, it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. Did you like his tree in a pile of dirt on his
Oh my
nightstand?
gosh! I said, oh my god! I actually have something written down for that.
It's like potted plant, but he did it wrong.
But it's like, no, it's for their wedding. Gonna get Henry a pot for a wedding gift.
Right? Like
for
now,
his plant.
Now that you're married, Henry, you got to put that
You
dirt
gotta
in a
put
plant.
that dirt in a plant pot. Serious.
What you
I have that note between Bedhog and grinds her teeth, and okay, now what the fuck is in the cupboard? It's okay. It's just Ray Harryhausen.
You wrote a thing. You wrote. No, you didn't write. You said at the beginning of this thing that Lynch can make the most banal thing, like supremely disturbing.
Well, not just the word I use. And there's a specific like 18 fucking pages.
I know. This is actually one of the most malevolent. Okay, so when she leaves for the last time and pulls her briefcase out from under the bed,
and she can't get it out,
but you'd get no indication that that's what she's doing.
I'm like, what is she doing?
She gets out of bed. She gets out of bed. She kneels at the edge of the bed and like leans. The bed starts like bang, bang,
and she's
bang.
crying
it's like
every time she does it. Like,
and her face like comes in between two like metal pipe. You guys have to watch this movie. I'm telling you can't do these things justice with words. But her face like goes between the grate at the end of the bed, like the bars, and like goes in between the like she's like in. I cannot. This is impossible to describe.
No,
I can't do it. But
it's the way she's trying to pull that. I mean, you're not aware that she's pulling out.
It looks like what she's doing is like intentionally shaking the bed and throwing her upper body against it, and her face is going between the bars, and she's sobbing and looking at Henry the whole time, and it becomes
it's almost weirdly sexual.
It becomes obscenely sexual because it goes on.
I'm like, is she jerking him off in some weird way? But she's not
touching him.
She can't be, but it's the weird.
All she's doing is moving the bed, but because she's moving the bed in a rhythmic way, Henry's just looking at her confused. She's sobbing, and the bed is banging back and forth, and you're like, God, why is this like sex, and why is this upsetting me so much?
And then she finally gets
pulls the briefcase out from under the bed. She just couldn't get the briefcase free, but for like. And a long time too. It's like 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. She's just like bang, bang, bang.
Here it is. Getting suitcase from under bed was genius.
It is fucking brilliant.
Just like holy shit.
Everything in this movie, again and again, you see stuff, and it's so everything. There is no context for anything. Everything is flying in the void. What, did you see a monster behind me just now?
Dude, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
No, okay, should I tell you?
Yeah, please.
I saw a person with a black robe and a black hat standing in the corner.
Behind me?
Like, way far back by, like, in the corner. Like,
fucking Christ.
I thought it was Bird for a second peeking, and I'm like, why is she wearing a black... Oh, that's not a thing.
Bird said the other day that she thinks this house has like weird bad energy, not like
I don't know if
ghosts,
it's bad. It's just a weird sort of doesn't feel poltergeisty necessarily.
The house that we are in right now is put together weird, like kitchen higher than dining room, higher than living room.
Yeah, you do step down, step down.
Step down, step down. That hallway is like the skinniest fucking hallway I've ever seen. It's just the house is laid out weird. It reminds me of how the Winchester house is described. Don't even look over there anymore.
I'm not looking. I can't look anywhere.
Do you remember in Mulholland Drive when they go behind the dumpster?
Oh, stop it!
The spooky guys back there.
It's like that. That's the same sort of weird black noise that happens in the diner when they're having that conversation. A walk from a diner to a dumpster has never been more terrifying. That's the most terrifying shit.
It is the scare. We should do Mulholland Drive at some point.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
I don't know that I can watch that movie.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. What are we?
It's gonna be the longest fucking 5-mile drive of my life.
Oh God. What I wanted to. By the way, that clip,
I'm gonna go home and watch Moana. I shit you not.
You know what I did last night because I couldn't get fucking Eraserhead out of my head? I watched with Bird. Bird's like, "What do you want to watch?" I'm like, "The Road to El Dorado." Can we watch that?
Can we watch that?
Dude, I might
That's a
do it
great
again
movie.
tonight just talking about this fucking film.
Oh, my brain is so fucking on fire right now.
Okay, we can't stop though. We gotta keep going.
Push forward, move forward.
Moving
I feel like I'm going to a different level or plane
Do you
of
kind
like.
of feel a little bit like
I feel
altered
a
state of
little weird.
consciousness
Yeah,
coming on?
yeah,
I'm starting to
yeah.
get a little wacky too.
Like
We're coffeeed
we have
up
been
a
drinking.
little?
I
No,
know,
we had
coffee's been done for a minute.
Yeah, we had a
It's not super late.
11
God,
o'clock.
it's
That's
11 o'clock.
that's not
Okay.
bad. We're not doing bad. But like we
What
had
are we on time? I feel like I've time traveled.
1:43.
Are you fucking kidding me? I feel like it's been like 3 hours.
Yeah, me too.
Something weird is happening right now.
Something weird
man.
is happening right now. There's no time in this movie, by the way. This movie jumps around in time. Like
I have no idea where
there's no
we are
frame of
half the
reference. There's no frame of reference. Everything could either happen like within a couple minutes or like
it's been-
a day, or it's been like months.
And it's a mutant baby, so who knows how long? How like
And we criticized another movie really strongly for this, but it works perfectly in this movie.
Yeah.
It's so genius. In the
the Spit on Your Grave remake.
Yes,
Yeah.
I wanted to. This is what I've been like unable to get to forever because we got on like all sorts of awesome tangents.
Yeah.
But the second DP director of photography is Frederick Elms. So there's two directors of photography on this, and they both worked really closely with Lynch. The way the documentary sets it up is it sounds like this was the most indie of films. They ran out of money several times and would go like. There's one shot where Henry goes to open a door, and when we cut to the reverse, 18 months have passed in real time before they cut the reverse. He ages over a year between walking through one side of the door and coming out the other, and the shot is matched perfectly because Lynch is a fucking psycho genius.
And that's the thing that I didn't consider is this movie took so long. People aged 5 years.
Aged 5 years shooting this, and if you didn't know that, you'd never know.
I mean, not that you age a ton in 5, but you age enough.
You age, yeah.
Yeah.
But think about that. Here's the scene. Watch for it if you watch this at home or spin it again. Henry's walking down the hall, turns, faces his door, looks around, hears furnace sounds and shit, opens the door, and walks into the room and closes the door behind him. That, when he's in the hallway, is 18 months before he steps into the room. That reverse shot is 18 months later. That's insanity. And especially the fact that they were able to perfectly match that. His hair. That actor, Jack Nance, had that haircut for 5 years. He kept his hair that way so that they could shoot at the drop of a hat if they needed to, if Lynch ever put together the money.
And that was just a fluke that his hair would do that.
Yeah, because his hair he had like weird hair where if you combed it up, it would stay up.
Yeah.
Without product. It just did that. Isn't that fucking strange? But the point about the DPs.
Yes.
This movie does something we've mentioned twice now on the podcast with two other, one film and a director. But Lynch uses long shots exquisitely. He will shoot he'll set you up with an establishing shot, and you're just looking at a room or a hallway or something.
And you live there.
You're there for like, and to give you an idea, you're there for like 5 full seconds, which when you're watching a screen, 5 seconds is a lot. It's like in a stage play. Like a minute of stage time is a long fucking time.
That's like,
if you have a bare stage for a minute,
that's an eternity.
Yeah, that is forever.
And that's why when there's drops in lines, like 2 seconds of getting a pickup,
right?
Like if you go up,
yeah,
feels like an eternity.
Yeah,
because it's that much.
It becomes super obvious anytime you drop out of flow. Like if an actor doesn't miss a cue but like needs to take a second. Everyone knows because they're like, that was weird.
Yeah, that was weird.
Because 2 seconds is forever, and Lynch will let you sit there for like 5 seconds, 10 seconds.
Sometimes like 30.
And then someone will walk on screen. I'm thinking particularly of the opening sequence when
he goes into the elevator?
when Henry's walking back to his apartment.
Okay, yeah.
Because we'll get these beautiful profile shots of the side of a building. And again, you get the sense like, we don't need this shot, but Lynch wants to show you, like, look at this building I found.
This building and this huge door.
This giant door, like look at this huge fucking giant door, like this hangar door that I found. Isn't this cool? Because when you watch that, that's like there's like 10 seconds of just that wall of that building or that door, and then Henry walks on screen, and Henry will walk, and he'll walk off screen or walk into the door, and we don't cut. We stay on the door. It's genius because it lets you know that it makes you feel like Henry's not what you're watching. You're watching Henry's world, and he just lives there.
And he just lives there.
The hallway outside his room is my favorite example, because we look down this hallway for, again, like 10, 15 seconds, and then Henry walks down the hallway, and he looks at the woman in his room across the hall, like her door, and then he turns and he goes into his room and closes the door, and we stay in that hallway for like another 15, 20 seconds, which is forever, and you realize maybe this movie's not about Henry. I mean, he's in it for sure, but
he's just walking through it.
Lynch, again, to use his words and to use my like weird jazz metaphors, he's not really building or telling a story. He's just created a world, and he's just showing you what he made.
Yeah.
Like, look at this world that I made. And
there
like,
happens to be a couple of people that are...
Stuff happens, and there's crazy vignettes, but a lot of those vignettes start with an establishing shot with no one in them, and end, again, with that same space. It's like that thing where, like, people come and go, but these spaces remain. It's there's a horror movie that I watched. I think maybe you and I covered it, or Bird and I covered it, but people will leave the scene and, I wrote a review for it. It's House of the Devil, that Ty West movie, where the babysitter will walk out of the scene and the camera doesn't stay static. The camera will move around the house and just show you the house. No spooky monsters. No one's in there. And you get the idea like, oh, I get it. We're not watching the fucking babysitter. The babysitter doesn't matter.
Right.
We're being shown this house because the house is the character, and the potential of the house is the character. And we get that in this movie, but not in like a cool stylized like 80s film Ty West auteur kind of way. We're getting it in like we're in a nightmare, like the way that hallways seem to never end. Hallways never end in this movie. They just keep rolling on that goddamn hallway. Oh, I fucking love it, dude. I fucking love this movie. One other genius shot that comes to mind, that's specifically a cinematography thing and not like acting moment. When Henry, after Henry has sex with the woman across the hall, the next time he sees her and she's with that weird guy with the like fucking growth on his face and the sweat and like the skullet happening, he goes into his room and closes the door and looks through his keyhole. And that keyhole, when the door slams, the doorknob is perfectly centered,
aligned with the keyhole.
And in that weird way, with the pulling the briefcase, I've never seen a shot of a door slamming more sexual. That doorknob just pounds into the center of the keyhole he's peering through, and you're like, it's fucking. Like, I feel
the door of the neighbor just fucked his keyhole.
You feel like, you almost feel as a viewer like you've been fucked just now. It's and it's not. I can't describe to you.
Oh,
people.
And she sees him as the mutant baby head.
Yes. Oh my God, I forgot about that. He looks at her, she looks at him, he looks at her. We cut back to her looking at him, and he has the baby head, and it's screaming silently.
Yeah.
There's no sound. It's like the whistling of a furnace, but the baby head the mouth is open and it's like shaking, but all you hear is like that furnace whistle. Yeah. Like, oh my God, dude, it's so fucked up and upsetting. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've covered everything
I've gone through my notes. I think that's all I...
The biggest note that I had on the making of the film is that the movie was cast... I thought it was crazy. The movie was cast entirely on word of mouth.
Yeah.
He didn't audition anyone. He saw
I've got a guy that you need to have in this movie. He's perfect.
He would just like run into people, and he'd tell them about Eraserhead, and they'd be like, oh, you should really check out blah. And then blah was who he threw in the movie. Everyone. He cast this entirely from recommendation, and it played out perfectly. Oh my God. Yeah, man. This movie, like, it feels... I know we've said a couple times, like...
The dog just scared the shit out of me.
I'm just glad there's another living thing
right?
in the house.
Thank you. Yeah. Starting to feel like we're on our own planet because it's dark and there's just light over the table.
Overhead light, yeah. I mean, I got the lamp on. If I turned that lamp off, we never would have made it.
Oh, hi, Jesus Christ.
Oh, is it really Bird this time?
It's really Bird this time.
We're almost done. I know we've said this before, like these. Oh, Jesus Christ! I knew she was there, and that scared me.
Scared you.
But I know we've said before, like, this is the reason that I love doing this podcast, this movie. This is the first time that we've hit a movie like this, because I think this is a movie all on its own, of its own kind. And I'm so glad we did it. And I'm hoping, because I've seen Only Lovers Left Alive, and I've seen Night on Earth.
I haven't seen either of those.
But I've never seen Blue Velvet. So I know I'm really excited for these movies that are coming up, because all the movies I stacked in my month are arty art house, kind of like weird, challenging, outside the norm type cinema, and I'm super excited to dig into them.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we didn't tell anyone what our theme this month is. It's
your birthday month.
Yeah, it's Max's Flick Picks is the is the title of this month. It's because it's my birthday month. I picked all the movies for this month. Usually Karl picks 2 and I pick 2. Next month is Karl's birthday month, so he picked all of the movies for next month. So, yeah, man, I've got nothing else, but I have nothing else but the highest possible recommendation that everyone watch
if
this
you
movie.
have made it this far into this particular episode without having seen Eraserhead, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, for real. And honestly,
but thank you for being with us this whole time
we really
and being like, what the
appreciate
fuck are they talking about?
I feel like in a weird way we didn't spoil it, because I don't think you can spoil this movie, because we can say all this shit all we want.
The giant sperm throwing it against the vagina cupboard, like no one knows what that.
Well, the lady in the radiator was singing him the song about how in heaven everything is fine, and you've got your nice things and I've got mine. But like, no matter how often or how many times we explained it, if you see it, it's still gonna wreck you, but in the best possible way.
And you'll be like, "Holy shit, that is what's happening!"
Oh my god, they described it perfectly. But I had no idea what they were saying. All right, are we housekeeping?
I'm good. Housekeeping.
Right. Jesus, Eraserhead, man. Okay,
that was a journey, by the way.
That our podcast or that movie?
Both. I feel exhausted right now.
Seems utterly spent. I gotta say, this is a strong ass contender now. I know we just did a shootout, and I tried to keep this movie out of my head, but boy howdy. All right, so we are Measuring Flicks is a listener-supported podcast, and if you like what we do and think that we should keep on doing it, and maybe like to get us like some money for security blankets for more movies like this,
that'd be fantastic. I need a whoopee.
Head on over to patreon.com/Max Peterson. You can get shout-outs on the show. You can get access to a bunch of full-length bonus episodes and bonus series that we're doing parallel to the main show. You can get access to our Season 0 and all sorts of other cool stuff. So head on over there and take a look. Speaking of Patreon, we have some patrons who've been donating money and helping make all of this shit possible and keeping the lights on and keeping the recordings going. Let's do it in reverse order, because I always start with that. So,
we would like to shout out to the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Connor Sweeney.
Connor Sweeney won't be able to hear this, though, because I heard that his severed head was picked up by a boy on the street who brought it into basically a small shop that makes erasers to put on the backs of pencils. So they drilled a core sample out of his brain and then inserted that core sample into the machine, and then his brain was used to cap pencils, which were then obscenely sharpened in the most complicated pencil sharpener that you've ever seen. So he's probably not able to really comprehend that we're shouting him out. So should we still shout him out, Mr. Connor Sweeney?
Okay, Paul.
Eraserhead, people. I'm not fucking around. This movie is legit. We are also, as ever, eternally grateful to John Scheibe, actor, poet, friend of mine, lives in NYC with his beautiful wife, and tutu enthusiast, our other patron. She literally, she rocks a tutu like no one you've ever known. Casey Scheibe. We tried to do this the other day, but there's nothing that rhymes with tutu, so there's no like witty thing I can say.
Poo-poo?
Maybe not. She's the tutu with the
doo-doo?
Doo-doo? I don't know, man.
She do the tutu like you. So
I don't know. Yo. Anyway, she fucking looks great in a tutu. She rocks it. She's got the confidence and the sass and the swang in her hips to get that tutu rocking. But so thank you so much to all of our amazing patrons, and R.I.P. Connor Sweeney, whose brain is now erasers on pencils. If you want to send us anything or send us an email where it's like, why did you guys do Eraserhead to me? Please don't. I watched this film and now my life is forever changed. Right. You can drop us a line at the new email that I've set up for the show, measuringflixpodcast@gmail.com. if you want us to cover a film, if you have suggestions or questions or want to just, shoot us your...
Shoot the shit.
Yeah, what did you think about our show or the movie? Or if you watched a movie and you're like, this was dog shit, why'd you like it so much? Or I thought this was great. Drive Angry's the best film of all time. I don't
want
know.
to hear all those.
Yeah. So drop us a line, measuringflixpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to follow Karl, he's over on the Facebook at Karl Hartley, KarlHartley, or on Instagram, which he is going to start using very shortly, as Crazy Karl 006. So Crazy Karl 006, that's 2 Ks, Crazy and Karl. I'm over there on the Instas as actual Max P, and I'm on Twitter occasionally as Max J. Peterson. I got nothing else. We're out the door.
Holy fucking shit.
Dude, Eraserhead. I mean, I know, right? It's anyway. I mean, I've been like, we've been doing a lot of these movies. We've been doing these movies for years, and people think that movies don't matter, but they really do. They change your soul.
Yep.
They twist your head around. I mean, look at my knees. Look at my knees.